right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of The Flug. That's right, the Fantasy League of Ordinary Gentlemen. We're going to recap Week 11 and do some waiting. All right. And if at any point you want to skip ahead and fast forward to any point of this podcast, we got each game highlighted down below in the comments. And if you want to just jump to the waivers section that we got as well. So let's get to it. All right. And once again, I am your host, Gary Zerkowski. And alongside me, we got Mr. Tyson Cullen for a second straight week. What's going on, man?
Just another day, another dollar, you know?
That's
living
what I'm
life.
talking about, man.
Living life, trying to go to football games and not get COVID.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So once again, you go into another game, man. What's the fourth one in the season?
This was the fifth one.
Is it the fifth one? Jesus Christ, dude, that's half the season already.
Yeah. Well, we just went to the Lions-Panthers game, which sorry, Shane, it was not exciting. Anyways.
He's used to getting shut out, so it's all good.
I did not see that coming. I thought I don't want to bash too much on Shane, but I just thought even without Swift and even with Galladay, I thought playing PJ Walker, I thought that they would have done a little more. But PJ Walker didn't play bad, which I'm sure we'll get into that. But no, we had a good time. The other people with me, they'd never been to a game, or two of them had never been to a game, and one of them had never been to the Panthers stadium. So, and I don't know how many times I've been to a Panthers game. So
nice. Well, what's the commute like for you down there?
So
about 3.5, 4 hours.
So it's about 5 for me. I picked up those 3 from Hertford County, North Carolina, which is about an hour from me, and then it took us about 4 hours from Hertford to Charlotte. So it wasn't a bad drive. It's a day drive. You can do it all in a day. We left about 7:30,
right,
and then got there about 11:30, and then just chilled.
Where was your seating at?
We were pretty much nosebleed, 500 level. But, it's funny, even at the 500 level, you could still see the game. Like, it didn't feel like you were so far away from the game. So we felt like we were really close, even though we were in the nosebleed section. Shane probably would have gotten into a fight with one of the Panther fans.
Right.
At least if I was Shane and I was a Lions fan, I would, because this guy, and I'll try not to cuss, but let's just say the guy.
You say whatever you want.
All right, there you go. So I'm not kidding you. Every time the Lions had the ball, and this guy in 23, I guess he just turned 23, because I heard him say something like, "Oh, it was my 23rd birthday yesterday." So
one of those young fucks, huh?
One young buck. So every time the Lions had the ball, he would say, "Fuck the Lions!" Every time. I'm not kidding you, dude. I'm not exaggerating. Every time, "Fuck the Lions, fuck number 9," or Galladay wasn't there, Swift wasn't there. I think he was getting on Marvin Jones, or it was either Jones or Hawkinson. Yeah.
How can you hate on Marvin Jones? Marvin Jones is like one of the nicest dudes too.
Yeah.
He's not an asshole.
I don't know. Yeah, but he definitely was getting on Stafford. And finally, about 5 minutes left in the game, they finally said, "Hey, y'all got to go. Like, you need to leave," which we were all like, at this point, you might as well just let him stay the last 5 minutes, because he'd been doing it the whole game. And then he made up some bullshit like, "Oh, the guys in front of me, they spilled beer on me." And of course, I'm not going to intervene because it's not my battle. But I look at my friends. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Like, nobody spilled beer on you, dude. Like, you're acting like an ass. So then they finally kicked him out, and people were clapping. I mean, that's how bad.
That's how bad he was, and how irate he was. He got kicked out.
Yes. He got kicked out.
That's
That's
a straight goon, bro.
An older Lions fan basically took like a video of him saying "fuck the Lion." I guess he was one of those Lion fans that's like, hey, fuck it, I'll just fucking join him in my I don't know, join him in my misery, or just like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna do the opposite of letting him bother me. I'm gonna have a video of him acting like a fool, or there's always two ways to handle somebody that's bad mouthing your team in a very disparaging way. You can either bow up and get in their face, or you can just join them and whatever. Yeah. So it's on the person. But yeah, he was obnoxious, and other than that, we had a great time. So
cool, man. I mean, shit, dude. I mean, it was a wild game with them getting blown out 20-0. But I mean,
yeah,
but it's all good. But Detroit has another chance to make that up when they play the Texans this Thursday. You doing anything for Thanksgiving?
Probably just watching the games.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really do it. Like, we usually have about like 20 people over, and but people are kind of leery about getting together, and I rightfully so. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I just I still try to live my life, even though we're in challenging times. But
yeah.
but I get why other people might not be as free spirit, if you want to call me that, or
shit. I was gonna say shit. 20 people at one time, like even on a typical Thanksgiving, back in like the better days, I guess you can say. That's a good crowd, man. Sit
Absolutely.
down and watch the football games and whatnot. I love that.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, it's usually me, my parents, my sister's coming about from Louisiana with her husband, so it'll probably be just the six of us with my son, and then yeah, dude, it's just I've never really had that big of a crowd for a Thanksgiving, man. I would kind of love to have something like that.
It's like
it's
cousins. It's like cousins, aunts, and grandparents, like half cousins, like, because it's usually with my stepmom and dad. So yeah, she invites everybody. I mean, she even invited my mom, which, I mean, that speaks to her as a person.
Sweet.
Inviting my mom, that could be a little, however you want to call it, awkward, but she still does it. So good. I mean, just
should happen. No, I mean, shit, dude. I mean, what family doesn't have their awkward times when it's certain individuals are in the same room, So
absolutely. What's your sister's husband? What's his team? I take it he's not an Eagles fan.
Oh no, he's a Patriots fan because he's from up there in New England, Vermont. Wait, Maine.
Vermont. Maine. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, if you're around Connecticut, like some parts of Connecticut and north, you're pretty much all Boston.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. So he's originally from up there, but yeah, he lives in Louisiana, maybe about 30 minutes above New Orleans right now. So I definitely got to hit some Mardi Gras up sometime in my life.
I couldn't live there. I
would not want to live down there whatsoever.
I could not live there. I went there one weekend.
Too many bayous.
Yeah, well, I went down there one weekend, and I came back after 3 days. I said, I couldn't do that every weekend.
Yeah.
I could not. Like, I was like Jared's bachelor party. I just went absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I think the lot for their new house is going to be infested of alligators in the bayou behind their houses. So I mean, that's not something I'll be too excited to want to live. In front of, I guess. But watch out for your pets and animals. That's some wild shit. But hey, dude, it's Tuesday night. We were just talking about 2 days from Thanksgiving. So I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving coming up. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to recap Week 11, each game of that, go run down that, and give some waiver wire ideas that we have going into Week 12. So what do you say? Let's get into it, huh?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. So the first game of the week was last Thursday. We had the Cardinals and the Seahawks. You got the Cardinals. Go ahead and give us some info.
They pissed me off because they decided not to be able to run the football after gashing up the Bills for 200 yards.
Yeah.
Kenyon Drake, who had 100 yards against Buffalo.
Uh-huh.
He got held to 29 yards on 11 carries, which, I mean, shouldn't shock me considering that, Seattle going into the Buffalo game a couple weeks back, they were like 9th against the run. And I'm sure they improved on that after Buffalo game when they didn't do anything. So it doesn't shock me that Kenyon Drake did not have much success running the football. In fact, he actually did more damage catching the ball. He had 4 catches, 31 yards on 5 targets. Kyler Murray was 29 for 42, 269, 2 touchdowns. Only ran it 5 times, 15 yards. So
Yeah.
I think the game plan was to throw the ball. I think anytime you're playing Seattle's defense, I think you have to go in knowing that, hey, if we get a big run, if we get one big run, I think that's good. But you got to go knowing in like, hey, we're gonna have to throw the ball on these guys because, as I said before, I like Jamal Adams as a safety, but he's another linebacker. He doesn't help you in your pass defense. I mean, I've seen him get just juked out of his socks by my guy Diggs. So
Yeah.
he's not a guy that's going to cover someone one-on-one. So
yeah, there's quite a few holes in that secondary for sure. Yep.
Yeah, and so I mean, Kyler went 29, like I said, 29 for 42, 269, 2 touchdowns. Got sacked 3 times. Chase Edmonds, who I was a little disappointed because I had him starting against you. He only had 2 carries, so a little disappointed by that. But again, that's probably more game plan more than anything. But he had 2 carries, 13 yards. Again, like Drake, he made more damage in the passing game. He also had 4 catches for 36 yards. He had a touchdown, and he caught 4 targets. DeAndre Hopkins, that's the one thing I can say about their secondary. They held D-Hop to 5 catches, 51 yards. I mean, so, he wasn't catching any more Hail Marys against people. And on 8 targets, which is it's okay. It's not great, but he found Murray found Larry Fitzgerald for 8 catches, 62 yards on 10 targets, which is certainly encouraging to see from the fact that he's 36 years old. So yeah, he found Fitzgerald often. Christian Kirk, 4 catches, 50 yards, 6 targets. The only thing I don't like about this Cardinals team when they throw the ball, they really don't have a number 1 tight end, in my opinion. I mean, they say Dan Arnold, but 1 catch, 4 yards, 1 target. Max Williams was 2 catches, 29 yards, and I think he caught both targets if I'm not mistaken. So the only thing I don't like about the Cardinals, they don't have a true number 1, and if I had to pick someone, we're doing a waiver wire ordeal. I mean, I want to get too crazy about Max Williams, but they don't have a tight end, so it's anybody's ball game as far as them having a tight end. One week it could be Dan Arnold, the next week it could be Darryl Daniels, and like this week, if you want to call them having a tight end that stood out, it was Max Williams. So
well, the same thing for. I'm sorry. Like I was going to say, Cliff Kingsbury definitely has that spread offense, and I think that's a big way that Kyler Murray's able to, get some rushing ability in that as well. I mean, especially with that spreading the defense out, making it easy for him to, move out of the pocket and whatnot. But
I would say, I mean,
tight ends are kind of useless in that offense.
And that's true. That's a good point. But I mean, Seattle's defense, considering that at one point, I think they were giving up 359 yards passing a game, which I think is on pace to be a record. Them only giving up 269 is actually a really good game for them. As pathetic as that sounds, them only giving up 269 yards is a major win for that secondary. So yeah, I mean, I was happy to see the Cardinals lose. I'm not gonna lie. After
Really?
that
In that division, I'd like to see the Cardinals. They should be able to make the playoffs for sure, but I kind of wanted to see them on top. This was a big game, man, especially for that division with Seattle winning and Seattle,
won.
Arizona, and the Rams were all pretty much tied before this week, and it looks like Seattle and the Rams are on top. But this division, man, is a tough division in the NFC.
Absolutely.
Conference for sure. But
I mean, I wanted them to win, but then when they beat us on that stupid Hail Mary, then my opinion changed.
Oh, I got you.
So maybe I'm being a little bitter bitch, but
no, I got to remember that you're always bringing back, everything that happened to the Bills for in that scenario. So I totally slipped my mind. Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many memes of that DeAndre Hopkins against the Bills. I mean, I won't. I don't watch it. Yeah, you might want to close your eyes for anybody who might try to see
dude. And I'll just say this about Buffalo. I've been watching like all the games back. I've not watched that game back for that only reason.
Well, I'll send you some memes, dude. I'll
please don't
remind you some reminiscent times.
Please don't forget to do that. Anyways,
it's all good. But hey, on the Seattle side of the ball, Russell Wilson had a great completion percentage. I mean, from completing 23 or 28 passes, mediocre to 197 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he doubled the amount of carries that Kyler Murray had too, and had 10 carries for 42 yards, which is pretty decent. The big rusher for this week was definitely Carlos Hyde. It's good to have one of the healthy backs there. Yep, 14 for 79 and 1 touchdown. The one thing too is that Bo Scarborough definitely outtouched DJ Dallas, which was interesting as well.
Absolutely.
So I think they really kind of wanted to pound the rock and whatever they could just outside, whether it was play action or whatnot. Tyler Lockett still led the team in receiving yards and targets. He caught all 9 of his targets for 67 yards and a touchdown. Metcalf, still doing Metcalf things, man. Even Metcalf, like you can kind of plus him and A.J. Brown from Tennessee, both coming out of Ole Miss. Whether they get 5, 6, 7 targets, they still make the best out of it, dude. So he caught 3 of his 5 for 46 and a touchdown. Still putting up decent numbers for those in fantasy too. Me and you, before the pod started, we talked about Greg Olsen and how he's likely going to be out going forward, and that should be good for either Jacob Hollister or Will Dissly. So me and you talked up Will Dissly earlier, but it's Jacob Hollister is really the only thing that's in his way, and with 2 ACL tears, right? That we thought that Will Dissly had within the past 2 years. It's hard to see. I thought he could have been a breakout candidate this year, but he's still got Jacob Hollister to beat in that scenario.
And I'm with you. Like I said, I was, and again, I'm going to bring up Buff. For those that don't know, I'm going to bring up Bill stuff all the time. But anyway, but Hollister against the Buffalo Bills, I was actually more impressed with him than I was like Tyler Lockett. I thought Hollister got open when we were playing like a short zone. He got over the middle, and he impressed me that game. But I'm with you. I mean, Hollister doesn't have 2 torn ACLs or 1 torn ACL to his resume, so I'm with you on that.
He was a substantial. Well, he was a substantial tight end last year too in 2019, towards the end of the season. Hollister. So I mean, that's when Dissly was out. They didn't really have anybody else going forward.
And I just want to say, as far as like Seattle goes, I know you said Russell had 197, but I think you and I talked the other day, but this is what frustrated me about this game. And again, another Bills quote, but Buffalo threw it 49 times against the Cardinals, and Josh Allen got through 2 interceptions. And I knew that they couldn't beat the Cardinals throwing it 49 times. Seattle did exactly what Buffalo needed to do. They needed to run the ball. I think they ran it, 30 times, I think, compared to 28. And that's how you beat Arizona. You can't sit there and throw it 50 times against Arizona, because eventually you're going to get burnt. And that's what happened twice to Josh Allen. He got picked off by Patrick Pearson. He got picked off by Kirkpatrick. So Seattle got back to what they did for so many years with Marshawn Lynch was run the football, And I thought Carlos Hyde looked good. I thought Bo Scarborough looked great. And Bo Scarborough is actually a good running back. He just seems to be always playing behind other people. But I don't know if you remember, there was a picture of him and Kirk Cousins put up a picture of him and Bo Scarborough when they were the same age. And Bo Scarborough looks like a fucking, God, like a fucking
he's a
Greek
monster.
God.
Yeah, he's a monster.
I mean, he is, I mean, he's just built like a –
I think this is his third or fourth year in the league, one of the two, because I think he was drafted by Dallas when he was coming out of Alabama. So
you're right. And this is the second time he's been with Seattle. And if you notice, Pete Carroll's been bringing in guys like Alex Collins, who was with Seattle at one point, and he's been bringing Bo Scarborough. So he's bringing back guys that are familiar with his system. And, I mean, Alex Collins didn't do that well last week, but he made the most of it by scoring a touchdown. And this week, Bo Scarborough got 6 carries. He did get hurt, but he had, like you said, 31 yards. I mean, I thought he ran really well. So.
Right. Back to your point in the rushing game for them too. If you count Russell Wilson's 10 rushes, altogether it was 31 rush attempts for Seattle compared to 28 pass attempts. So it was a little under 50, almost 50-50.
And that's how they should. And I thought that was a good game plan. Like I said, Buffalo should have done that, and that didn't work out. So I thought Seattle had the right mindset of dialing it back a notch with, unleashing the football downfield.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, well, let's kick it into Sunday's games, and let's see here. Our first one we'll go into is Tennessee and Baltimore, which was an interesting outcome to me. Go ahead and throw in Tennessee.
Tennessee, yeah. So, I mean, they were down – give credit where credit's due. They were down 21-10, and, they came back and won 30-24. Tannehill was 22 of 31 for 259, threw 2 touchdowns, an interception, ran it 4 times for 35 yards. Actually fumbled it twice, but they happened to get it back. Just a random note, they actually ran a fake punt, and Logan Woodside threw
if you didn't know, that's one of my boys, dude. I thought he was going to be an up-and-coming QB. Not amazing by any stretch. But I saw he did throw, one reception for 7 yards for a first down is what I saw.
Yep, to Nick Westbrook, on a fake punt. There was 4th and 7. They got exactly 7 yards for the first down, and they were able to score a touchdown. But Derrick Henry, 28 carries, 133 yards, a touchdown, 1 catch for -1 yards, 2 targets. But yeah, I mean, that run at overtime, that was big time. I mean, that's why you have him, I mean,
to your point there, against a Baltimore Ravens defense, Derrick Henry still was the number 3 running back in fantasy this past week. So that's insane.
Right. Yeah, and I thought that and obviously last week I thought the Colts controlled the time of possession, but, I mean, Derrick Henry ran all over the Colts last week. He only had 19 carries. I think he had 103 yards. And, you got to expect Tennessee-Baltimore to be a boxing match. And, you kind of have to go pound for pound or blow for blow. And that's how Mike Vrabel, that's how he is, establishes a run, 28 carries to set up the passing game. I mean, and have their defense, their defense hasn't been playing that well, but if their defense can get back to what they're always, this is a tough team to beat. Corey Davis, 5 catches, 113 yards on 7 targets. He's starting to get his groove. I thought he played really well his first year, I think it was, and then last year he kind of just fell off, and then I think he's starting to I think he's starting to pick up his game, and they certainly need that because A.J. Brown is obviously the target. A.J. Brown
he's getting
had
shadowed a lot too. Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. And A.J. Brown, 4 catches, 62 yards, and had a touchdown, had 7 targets. Someone like A.J. Brown definitely needs another guy like Corey Davis, who's the speedster. A.J. Brown is the guy that can – he's got a little bit of speed, but certainly can go over the middle. I've seen him run a slant and then just take it all the way. Those guys are definitely integral part of their offense.
See, you know what? I mean, now that we're talking about this now, I kind of want to go back and watch Corey Davis's game, see how he was handled, how the defenses actually are they man to man with him? Is the defense more like a zone? Because 5 for 113, man, he lit it up. That's something you see more likely out of A.J. Brown.
Right.
And that's great, man. That's what you want out of we all say that A.J. Brown is the number one for that team, but if we're gonna put Corey Davis and him being on that second or on that weaker cornerback side, that's great. It's something you want to see too, you know.
And you're right. And I can't say I watched the game, so maybe I'm I don't know if it was all zone, but to me, if I'm Baltimore, I'm trusting Marlon Humphrey and I'm trusting Marcus Peters to play man on just about any wide receiver in the game, except for, maybe D-Hop or Diggs, being a little biased, but cool. but I'm trusting Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey to play man on a Corey Davis or even A.J. Brown, or I'll even say it, maybe try to play man on Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I think Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters that's a really good cornerback duo. Now certainly some teams are exposing this defense, but I still think they're a tough defense.
Absolutely.
I just because they gave up 30 points to the Titans and I think it was like 28 to Pittsburgh, the sky's not falling. Those are 2 really good teams. I still think this is a really good defense.
Right. And to see Corey Davis, former first-round pick in 2017, just to see those kind of numbers from him this year,
Absolutely.
Pretty much on a contract year. That's something you want to see. But
I'm a little biased
if he gets re-signed. If he gets re-signed, I don't think it'd be for too much because his –
Right, but you look at their other options, and I'll get to them, but you look at your other options. You got, again, Nick Westbrook, who called a fake punt. You got Humphreys, who was out. He didn't play. You got Cameron Batson, who played the slot receiver this weekend. He had he caught both of his catches for 21 yards, had a 4-yard carry, and had 2 targets. And he does special teams. I guess that'd be one of those guys. That'd be one of those guys that he's definitely not one of my waiver wire, my first waiver wire guys, but he's certainly someone that, because of his special teams, you kind of have to maybe take a little look at it.
Right.
Believe it or not, Jonnu Smith did not lead the tight ends. Him and Fursker each had 4 catches, but Anthony Fursker, 4 catches, 33 yards, 5 targets. Jonnu Smith, 4 catches, 20 yards, and although he had a touchdown, 6 targets.
Yeah. There's some games within the season where Fursker is going to be much of a vulture from Jonnu's, from the looks that Jonnu could have.
Absolutely.
He's really big in the red zone as well.
Yeah, and Fursker is one of the guys that, you're almost looking at this day and age with these tight ends. You're almost looking for any kind of tight end that does anything. And we'll get to say Hayden Hurst, who had no catches, and he's I think he's in the top 5 in stats among tight ends. So you're looking for any kind of tight end. I think I'm going to try to make a play for Fursker in our Chuba league just because. Why not?
It's not bad. He's not a bad. Secondary tight end for a team.
Yeah.
The only problem to me is when Tennessee is likely to throw anywhere between, more than likely under 30 passes a game.
Right.
just shows that. I mean, you're looking at Ferkster maybe getting 3 targets a game,
right,
with somebody who passes like that. I mean, he's passing
very
kind of
true.
like I don't know who's passing a lot. I mean, I think Philadelphia is probably passing a lot. Joe Burrow and company, although they don't pass to the tight end much.
No.
So
the Rams yesterday. We'll get to that. I mean, they threw it 51 times yesterday. So, yeah, but
you good on that side?
Yeah, I'm good on that side. Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's kick it over to Baltimore. It's funny, man. Baltimore's sliding backwards. So it looks like I mean in that division they're 6-4, and I think they took a back seat now to Cleveland.
Third.
Yep, they're in third now, and then you got of course Pittsburgh still 10-0 undefeated, which is amazing. Lamar Jackson 17-29 for 186 and a touchdown and 1 interception. Still did a little bit in the rushing game for him. 13 carries for 51 yards. The leading rusher, though, is J.K. Dobbins, man. I'm still waiting to see this breakout season for him. I thought it would be usually towards the back end of this season, mainly more into next season, but 15 carries, 70 yards, and a touchdown, along with 2 catches for 15 yards. Me and you did talk about this, too, with Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins pretty much on the COVID list for illness right now. So we're looking at Gus Edwards and possibly – Justice Hill being the primary running backs going into Week 12. So we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But just Gus Edwards, just 3 carries, 6 yards. Mark Ingram, 2 carries, 2 yards. So it looked like this is a J.K. Dobbins game, bro. I mean,
I'm waiting for it to be J.K. Dobbins. I think he's ran the best. I still think, as I said in our was it the trade value, the last one, I still think Ingram and Edwards, or Ingram has juice, but I think it's just only a matter of time before that team becomes J.K. Dobbins. I mean, I really do.
So let's play a little game of who do you think had the most targets of this team?
Most targets. You know what? I vaguely looked at. I think Dez Bryant.
He was close. He was second in targets, but of course it's Mark Andrews. I was going to get back. I was going to ask you this runner-up, and that was Dez Bryant with 5 targets. Mark Andrews did have 7, caught 5 of those for 96 and a touchdown. But Dez Bryant, 4 catches, 28 yards. So it's really weird how this whole team is right now because Marquise Brown, 3 targets, no receptions. Devin Duvernay, 2 targets, a measly 5 yards on his 1 catch. Patrick Ricard, I think he had a catch too. He also, you know what? Yeah, there was a thought he had a touchdown on that catch, but he was just short. I remember that play now.
Yeah, okay, I remember that one. Yep.
And then, I mean, third in targets, third in receiving yards is Willie Snead, dude. It's just a weird scenario for this team. Like, Lamar still doesn't really have much of a number 1 target unless it's Mark Andrews.
Well, here's my question. So Dez Bryant just got sent back to practice squad. I mean, when do you sign him? I mean, am I getting too excited saying, hey, should they sign him to the active roster, or do you need another week to see what he does if they bring him up? I mean, it's like you said.
The weird thing is, too, when they do this whole practice squad thing, I think you can only bring him forward and backwards to the practice squad twice, right?
Twice, right.
And then the next time you pretty much have to keep him or one of the 2.
But I think desperate. I think at some point you got to pull the trigger, and because like you said, you're getting no catches from your number 1 or so-called number 1 receiver, and you and I talked about it that Willie Snead led their team in receiving last week.
Yep.
If he's your number 1 receiver, you're in trouble.
Yeah, because Marquise Brown, he's not. He's savvy in some route running, but he's more of like a deep threat. And
right.
More towards it's really hard for, I do think Lamar Jackson throws a pretty ball. It's just like, I think the trajectory. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn English. I got an English class tomorrow, so I'll be able to learn much of it then. But the trajectory of his throws sometimes does not mend well for those on the outside of the numbers. So I mean,
I get what you're saying.
So the hashes and whatnot. So it's really, I love Lamar, but like his deep ball's pretty. I like the way he can throw that. The middle of the field is good, but like when it comes to the outside, dude, he's all over the place.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that's why somebody like Miles Boykin's not too great. I want to kind of go back and watch this game and see how Des Bryant was lined up on the field too, to see exactly, because he's more of an outside wide receiver, you know.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it.
Yeah, he's that X factor. You know what I'm saying?
So yeah, and another guy, you know, I'm looking and I look James Projet, who only had a catch for 14 yards, but caught his only target. But he also provides, I think he's their punt returner.
Yeah, he's their returner. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, again, you know, I want to get crazy and, you know, pick him over someone like a Hollister or a Disley or who else did I write down? Like Richard Rodgers or Demir Bird, who I'll mention.
And he's a late round pick too. I think he was picked in the 6th round.
SMU, yep.
Yeah. So, but Devin Duvernay is like a slot receiver that I'm really expecting big things about. Maybe going into next year when this team kind of figures a little bit more out in the passing game, because ever since Lamar's been on this team, it's been a rushing game. I mean, the passing hasn't been all there, and I think last year they were either bottom or the bottom 1 or 2 of all teams who pretty much in pass attempts. So,
yeah,
as you can see here too, Lamar not really going past 30 pass attempts too. Like you can see that this is definitely a rushing attack that they usually go for.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
he's gonna need some better reliable wide receiver targets for sure.
Yeah. Like I said, yeah, if Willie Snead's your number 1, you're in trouble. I mean, nothing against him. I picked him up just because what the hell. But if Willie's
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I was just gonna repeat myself. Willie Snead's your number 1, which I mean, Dez was this week, but still, if you're relying on Willie Snead to be your number 1, I mean, you're just in trouble.
Yeah. I was going to say Dez Bryant is more of a bigger wide receiver, one who's pretty much well in contested catches. So with Nick Boyle being out, do you think Dez Bryant is somewhat replacing the Nick Boyle role in ways? Nick Boyle didn't really get targeted much. That's the thing.
No.
But I was kind of curious in that. I can't remember exactly who, with Dan being a Ravens fan, like who exactly they picked up. I can't remember the exact name at tight end. Do you know who their second tight end was? I could probably look it up real quick.
Yeah.
But it's a significant name that I totally just forgot about.
Yeah, I was gonna say Dan could definitely let us know. Yeah. Tell you in a second.
Oh, it's Luke Wilson. That's right.
Luke Wilson. That's right. That's right.
Yep. But it's different. We need Lamar's going to need some playmakers in the receiving end.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if Marquise Brown isn't doing something, you pretty much need to rely on somebody else. And who else are you going to rely on if it's not just Mark Andrews? So.
And last week, I'd give him a reprieve because he was probably lined up against J.C. Jackson. And J.C. very underrated cornerback. He's the guy that's going to replace Stephon Gilmore as the guy. But this week, Tennessee's secondary is giving up a lot of yards. You know, they definitely need to – like I said, I thought they actually threw the ball a lot better against the Patriots than they did this week against the Titans, and you would think it'd be the other way around. So,
They got to do something. Mark
Exactly.
Andrews. I mean, Mark Andrews is a stud, absolutely, but like you said, they need someone else to take the cover off. So
That's for damn sure. All right, let's hightail it into the game that you went to go see, and that is the Detroit Lions versus the Carolina Panthers.
oh man, I don't want to bash Shane too much on this one.
It's all right. Let's just make it quick. Kind of like this game.
Okay.
Sorry,
yeah,
that was my deep laugh there.
Yeah. Matt Stafford had a hard day. The offensive line had a hard day. The passing game had a hard game. Matter of fact,
the rushing game looks pretty bad.
Peterson 7 carries, 18 yards, didn't catch his only target. Kerryon Johnson 6 carries, 17 yards, caught 2 of his 5 targets, 21 yards. Matt Stafford, 18 for 33, 178 yards. He got sacked 5 times, and it only got worse at the end. The pass rush only got better. I'm sorry. The offensive line blocking for him only got worse when the game got out of hand. So he actually ran it 4 times for 5 yards. Him and Marvin Jones had hooked up for 4 catches, 51 yards, and 6 targets. But they actually had a 51-yard touchdown pass, and it got called back because of legal motion. And it was a great play. It was a halfback toss. The halfback toss, quarterback throwback. So basically they tossed it to I think it was maybe Kerryon. I think he threw it back across the other side of the field to Matt. Matt avoided a defender, and then he just threw one up, and Jones came down with it with 2 defenders trying to defend him. And damn, that was the best play. That was the best play of the game, and it got called back. It was just one of those days, and I don't think they got past the 20-yard line, and Matt Prater missed his only field goal. So it was just one of those days. They just couldn't get it right. T.J. Hawkinson, 4 catches, 68 yards, 7 targets. It's about time that he actually had a deep, I think, 30-yard completion. So it was nice to see him get some yards after the catch. I know last week he had 2 catches, 13 yards. So, really, Hawkinson and Jones were the only 2 guys that really, really stood out. You got Marvin Hall, 3 catches, 16 yards, all 3 targets. Jamal Agnew, 3 catches, 10 yards, 6 targets. Quintez Cephas, 1 catch, 9 yards, and Jesse James, 1 catch, 3 yards.
James, the wild man.
Yeah, the wild man. But yeah, T.J. Hawkinson and Marvin Jones were really the only 2 guys that really stood out.
Yeah, and you thought T.J. Hawkinson would probably be more of a reliable target. He led the team in targets, but
yeah,
you think maybe with Golladay being out, he would be the primary guy,
right,
alongside with Marvin Jones.
Their offensive line. Carolina beat them up front, and they always say if you win the trenches, you should win the game. So it had a lot to do with Panthers pass rush, but yeah, just not the greatest Lions.
Yeah. Well, going forward to Carolina, though, we had P.J. Walker in, who pretty much took over for Teddy Bridgewater, and that was kind of like a last-minute notification that we all got in fantasy.
Yeah.
So P.J. Walker, 24 34 attempts for 258 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. The one thing that P.J. Walker did do is he sent out a pretty much a good average amount of targets to his top 3 guys. DJ Moore, 11 targets. Curtis Samuel, 10 targets. Robbie Anderson, 9 targets. And the good thing is, too, also, he had 2 of his top wide receivers in both DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel. They were in the top 10 of fantasy points for wide receivers. So I think, where was it? Where am I at? DJ Moore was 8th, and Curtis Samuel was 10th. DJ Moore, 7 receptions, 127 yards. That's what you want to see out of DJ Moore.
Yeah.
No more DJ, less. DJ Moore, all season long. Curtis Samuel, 8 for 70 and a touchdown. That touchdown definitely helped his numbers for sure. Robbie Anderson, still like a decent game. I mean, in PPR, catching 7 of his 9 targets for 46 yards. It's somewhat standard. Half PPR, maybe not as great, but I mean, in full PPR, you're getting well over 11 points for that. The rushing game, Mike Davis, as always, led the team, 19 for 64 and a touchdown. Me and you were both talking about Rodney Smith.
Yeah.
And he almost had half the amount of touches as Mike Davis as well. He had 8 for 29. So,
We got the first carries of the game. And
yeah,
my buddy who's got Mike
I do remember seeing that. Yep.
He got the first 2 carries of the game, and my buddy was like, "What the heck is this about?" I said, "Calm down. It's okay. Like the guy's not falling." But yeah, he got the first 2 carries of the game, which was very interesting to see.
Yeah. Yep. I'm interested to see more of that. I think Rodney Smith, he's got some explosion to his game too, man. I kind of like watching him play. So,
Yeah.
And no telling when this whole thing with Christian McCaffrey is going to be, because they're still week to week. So
I think he might be out this week again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought I heard he might be out again. Yep. So
it's wild times, man. So yeah, I mean, have it with him with that injury early in the season, now a shoulder injury, man. It's a lot to your body, especially if you're, not much of a contender. Why rush him back in?
Yeah, side note, I thought PJ Walker played well, but certainly the 2 interceptions. You know how sometimes it's not always the quarterback's fault. I mean, they were on him. I mean, those were the 2 worst throws he had was the 2 interceptions. But other than that, I thought every other throw was contested. But I didn't think for a guy that came from the XFL and made his first start, I didn't think he looked that bad. Just those 2 throws, he definitely probably wish he had back. But other than that, I didn't think he played that bad.
Yeah, there was a couple dimes he threw. One of them to DJ Moore, dude, on the sideline, which I thought was amazing. That was great.
I thought the one to Samuel in the corner of the end zone, I thought that was a great throw.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's one of those who has certain sparks. I mean, I know he's been in the NFL a couple times. He was also, in the XFL last year. I think it was for the Houston team.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
Yeah, Houston. And he was like, I think, the best QB in the league, for sure.
Well, if they had finished the season, they were saying he was going to be the MVP. He was our
MVP. He's got some finesse to his game. I mean, maybe like the pinpoint accuracy might be a little bit, but like for those deep throws, he's definitely got it, man. When he's got the open wide receiver, he can definitely loft it pretty well.
Yeah, him and DJ Moore hooked up on a 52-yarder. It was a thing of beauty.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's kick it on over to my least favorite team in the league now, Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns.
I'm sorry,
dude, that tie is literally like keeping them above the rest of the NFC East, which is wild, dude.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Man,
but
I really was. I needed y'all to beat the Browns, but it is what it is.
I mean, it was a dirty game. Like a lot of rainfall, a lot of heavy rain, and the rushing attack for I'll kick it off real quick. The rushing attack for the Browns is what really killed the Eagles. Nick Chubb, 20 carries, 114 yards. There was one monstrous run that he had where he bulldozed over at least maybe half of the guys on the field. But I mean, Nick Chubb is a powerhouse, dude. It's so fun to watch him run. He did leapfrog one of the Eagles players trying to tackle him. But not only that, Kareem Hunt did a little leapfrogging of his own.
Yep, I saw that.
Into the end zone. I mean, he had 13 carries for 11 yards and a touchdown. But I think he also, he helped a little bit in the passing game with the catch and 10 yards. But I mean, still, that touchdown is what kind of saviored his fantasy output. But with the Eagles, I will give it to them. Their rushing defense is usually pretty good, but I think it was just too much to handle from a team like this who's got a really good play calling and a really good rushing attack.
Yeah, yeah.
Baker Mayfield, still not doing what he can do. He was okay with 12 for 22 and 204 yards. No touchdowns for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yet again, it was a messy game.
Yeah.
But
and the last two games for Cleveland have been raining. So
yeah, and what was it? Kadero Hodge, 3 receptions for 73 yards.
I had to look him up. I didn't know who. I had to look up who the hell Kadero Hodge was.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. Anyways.
And Hooper, too, caught 3 of his 5 for 33 yards. So Jarvis Landry was suspect. Not much of a factor in this game. Caught 2 targets. 2 of his targets were 23 yards. So the tight ends were barely utilized except for Austin Hooper. And that was kind of bad because I thought Harrison Bryant would probably be a factor. But I think this this rain is really what made the rushing attack, somewhat viable for this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think with them losing OBJ and everybody knows that Landry's their number 1 wide receiver. I mean, Higgins wouldn't be a bad if he hasn't been picked up yet in most leagues. Higgins is a guy that wouldn't be a bad play. Hodge maybe in the deeper leagues, like in our 14 team. Those are 2 guys that, like I said, if you're desperate on some wide receivers, Hodge and Higgins are definitely guys that I would look at. Definitely Higgins because you know more about Higgins than you know Hodge. Maybe not that much more, but a little bit more about Higgins than Hodge. So
yeah, and Higgins has some fantasy impact as it is within the past few weeks. So I like that for sure. What you got on the Philly side?
So
anything I don't want to hear?
I can leave him out if you want me to.
No, go for it.
Wentz 21 of 35, 253, 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs, 3 carries, 10 yards. Had a fumble, but they were able to recover it. Miles Sanders, only 16 carries, 66 yards, but, I didn't think it was a great matchup anyways, going up against the Browns' run defense. Had 3 catches, 15 yards, did lose a fumble. So, I mean, he still averaged 4 yards a carry. So, I mean that's still respectful anytime you can do that. But I certainly knew it wasn't one of the best matchups he had this year. Gotta love what you saw out of tight ends. We talked about Richard Rodgers off screen, and like you said, Dallas Goedert was what you say? Was he top? Was he the top one, or was he?
He was the top 4 tight end.
Top 4, okay. So I mean, Goddard. I can never say his name right. 5 catches, 77 yards, a touchdown on 6 targets. Richard Rodgers, 2 catches, 48 yards, a touchdown, 2 targets. And right now I would say, obviously Rodgers is number 2 tight end, but kind of we were talking about Fursker. If you need a tight end, you need a secondary tight end. He's not a bad play. Sleeper, he's only a 30% value, but he's someone that I would pick up in a deeper league if I had to. I thought he had a good game last week, and it's good to see Goddard being the guy that he can be. So, and I think they need, and I'll get to Fulgham, but I think they do need to run a little more 2 tight end sets, especially if you're going to run the football. You can attest this more than I can. I don't know. Does Philadelphia run fullback at all, or do they run more single back?
Typically, no. I mean, if they do have fullback, somebody else in the backfield, it would usually be Goddard. Because Ertz is more of a pass catcher. He's not that much of a blocker like Goddard is.
Right.
So the good thing is too, kind of like you were saying as well. I do like the 2 tight end sets. You always got to think of when Ertz and Goddard are in. They're usually going to be anywhere between the number 1 and number 4 target for the team.
Yeah.
So Any like tight end is pretty much a primary spot for Eagles.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I definitely think going on here on out, they definitely need to run that 2 tight end set. Even you can make the argument. I mean, Rodgers would never be the Zach Ertz in his prime, but still, he's been effective for a guy that was supposed to be maybe the Washington starting tight end. We know how that worked out. Logan Thomas became the guy, so so yeah, I like what I've seen out of their tight ends. Jalen Reagor, 4 catches, 52 yards, 5 targets. Again, maybe not eye popping numbers, but certainly
he's having a quietly decent year. Like, I mean,
okay.
It's nothing like over the top. It's not like he's not doing anything either. He's
right.
Just in between. He's mediocre. I mean, which is fine for me.
Yeah.
For a first-year wide receiver, it's pretty much what he's averaging. Exactly what you're saying. So like 4 catches, 3 catches each week for like anywhere between 40 to 60 yards. We usually see him like better at catching the deep passes, kind of like a Deshaun Jackson. But I mean, it's kind of like he's just at a certain median right now, which is okay with me. I'm all right with that.
It's encouraging. I mean, there's some other wide receivers in that class that obviously there's a few that I would take before him, but then we got one at Buffalo that right now is struggling, Gabriel Davis. So I mean, there's certainly other wide receivers in this class that I would take Reagor over. So I mean, like I said, that's respectful. 4 catches, 52 yards. Boston Scott, 5 carries, 24 yards, 3 catches, 26 yards, 3 targets. Greg Ward, 3 catches, just 9 yards. 4 targets.
He's the one who's pretty much fading out of everybody on the team. Ever since, Fulgham's been pretty much more of a reliable target. You got Alshon, who kind of vaguely came back too.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say.
And those 2 tight end sets, it's usually a big deal for the Eagles as well. So.
Yeah, like I said, we talked about it last week. They need to establish a run. And again, I kind of had a feeling Miles wasn't going to go off this week. But I mean, he certainly had a respectful game, other than that fumble loss, which I know that pissed off a lot of people. But
I got a really interesting question for you.
What's up?
Josh Allen, this is his 3rd season, correct?
Oh yeah.
So next year, y'all would pretty much pay him the big money, correct?
Oh yes, sir.
So let's say you guys pay him the big money, right?
Okay.
And he starts playing like Carson Wentz season this year. How pissed off would you be?
Very.
Yeah.
Very. And I'm gonna tell and the reason why I might get defensive, I tell people this all the time. The reason why I get defensive with the Bills as opposed to my other teams suck. First of all, the Orioles, the Sabres, and the Hornets, if you call it NBA. But the Bills every year, the last couple of years, they teased me and made the playoffs 3 years ago and then made the playoffs last year. Going to the quarterback situation, if you look at our quarterback history, it's not very good. You got Jim Kelly, and then you basically got everybody else. I would say if I had to do a top 5, just to bore everybody to death, but if I had to do a top 5 for Bills quarterback, I would probably go Kelly, Flutie, Fitzpatrick, Tyrod, and then I can only do top 4.
You like Tyrod better than Josh Allen?
Well, yeah, right. I mean, I guess
okay, right now, yeah.
Right now, yeah. I mean, I guess because Josh hasn't stopped playing for us, but yeah, I mean, I guess Josh could be in the top 5 already among our quarterbacks. But so I've seen a lot of really bad quarterbacks in my time as a Bills fan. So when we get one that, I mean, he loves Buffalo, and if you ever watch him, he is Buffalo made. And he already came out and said that he does not want to leave Buffalo because of all the donations that
didn't he throw a donation like of $17,000 to make it $500K for something?
What was that? For his grandmother passing away. Yeah. It's close to, and I think it's close to 700 if it hasn't reached 700 already.
What was the charity again?
Oshai's Hospital.
Okay. So,
I can.
You're fine. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it's a children's hospital up in Buffalo, O'Shide's Children's Hospital. But
Cool.
yeah, I don't know if pissed off is the right word. I'd just be disappointed because it just seems like this guy loves Buffalo. He comes from a small town that you've never heard of. You would have to really look it up. He's just Buffalo made, So
Right.
it's every Buffalo Bills fan wants this guy to be the guy. I mean, everybody wants every quarterback to be the guy, but this guy is Buffalo made. I mean, he's tailor made for Buffalo. So I don't know if pissed off would be the right word. I'd be disappointed.
Well, going back to Wentz real quick. Just a lot of disappointment this year with it, but it could be play calling as well, and just the lack of weapons, lack of offensive line. There's a lot of things, but I mean, there is a lot of inconsistency in Wentz that I've seen while just like watching his tape as well, which is very undermining, and it sucks to see. Because, I mean, when you drafted somebody in the second round in Jalen Hurts, you're like, just bench him for him right now. Just flat out do it. Let him know, hey, you're not doing your part. I mean, there's some games where he's just not – he's putting us far behind the 8 ball,
Yeah.
So
my question is –
sometimes to me is I want you to put this QB in his place and let him know, like, hey, if you're not doing it, just like anybody else on this team, we're gonna put somebody else.
So as an Eagles fan, here's my question: are you at a point that they need to put Jalen Hurts in? Are you officially saying like, hey, it's time?
I don't think he needs to start a game, but if Wentz actually does not start out well within the first half, you need to start anew the second half.
So sort of like Tua, like what Miami did this past weekend.
Yeah, but I saw Tua got a nasty little hit. That's why Fitzpatrick came in too.
Okay, because I had heard both. I had heard that it was because of injury, and then I heard that they had benched him. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess
he wasn't – I don't think it was I think it was a hit too because I saw him like his leg was pretty much far behind him.
Okay.
When he got hit. It looked like one of those where, like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to take it easy the rest of the game and see. Fitzpatrick was a fucking maniac, and they were 10 points behind at that time in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's why I was really interested to see Fitzpatrick. And, I mean, he's a gunslinger compared to Tua. Tua, you kind of need, like, a certain game script. Like, the defense helped them out within the past few weeks. And I think with Fitzpatrick, it's like all or fucking nothing. Either we're going to do this or we're not. So.
I love some Fitzpatrick. He's another one that talks so well about Buffalo that he said that Buffalo was his favorite. And look how many teams he's been with. But he actually said that Buffalo was his favorite favorite team. So it's not that hard to please Buffalo fans. If you talk nice, it's like if you're seeing someone, if you talk nice to someone, they're gonna appreciate that, and that's how Bills fans are, man. You just got to talk a little dirty to us,
A little bit of sweet nothings in the ears, and you're good to go, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, hey, let's get rolling to the Texans and the Patriots. So, Deshaun Watson. After this game, number 1 QB this week in fantasy. So 28 of 37 for 344 yards and 2 TDs. Had a couple carries for 36 yards and a touchdown. Not so much in the rushing aspect from Duke Johnson or CJ Prosise. Both of them together tallied about 19 yards off of 13 rushes.
What a surprise.
Yeah. The biggest receiver output was with Brandon Cooks, but 4 receptions for 85 yards. And Jordan Akins, man, we don't really see the tight end usually follow up for this team. It's usually a hit or a miss, mainly a miss. But, I mean, there's a few handful of games within the season where the tight end is actually a factor. Jordan Akins, 5 of 6 targets for 83 yards. And Will Fuller, Still putting up substantial wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 numbers with 6 receptions for 80 yards.
It's good to see him healthy. It's good to see him healthy.
Right.
I gotta say, it's good to see him healthy for once.
Yeah, there's one name that's just out of the fucking blue, man. Out of blue, Kiki QT, 2 receptions for 10 yards and a touchdown. That's a name that I haven't heard in a long, long time.
Yep. As Obi-Wan once said. Yep.
I think Randall Cobb went out early in the game.
Okay.
He did have 2 receptions for 7 yards and a touchdown, but I think he did go out pretty early. I'd have to check that again, but I think he got injured that game. He went out. But why don't you follow up on the Patriots and how and why they ended up losing this game?
Yeah, and I just want to say, going back to Houston, Duke Johnson and C.J. Prosise, if those are running backs, that's not going to last very long.
No,
at least successfully. I mean, nothing against them. C.J. Prosise went to Notre Dame, so I got a little soft spot for him. But if those are your running backs, you're in trouble. Yeah, so, I mean, Cam Newton, I guess, had a day. Of course, they were playing behind 21-10, but, you know, it's nice to see when – this is an interesting team. There's a lot of moving parts that people probably don't realize. So, first of all, they lost Rex Burkhead, who I think he tore his ACL. He's out for the season. And this was his second year. He's never been the number 1 back, but this was the second year of his career where he had 3 touchdown runs and 3 touchdown catches. Maybe I'm a little biased because I got him in our league, but I thought he was playing well. So he tears his ACL. You know, they don't dress out Sony Michel, even though he was eligible to return. I guess they like Damian Harris so much that, you know, they didn't dress out Sony Michel. N'Keal Harry came back, but I can get that in a second. But yeah, Cam Newton, 26 of 40, 365, 1 touchdown. Only ran it 3 times for 6 yards, which is, you know, really shocking. Usually he's running it for at least 8 to 10 times a game. But as a New England fan, even though you lost, it's nice to see, you know, your passing game do something. Damian Harris, just 43 yards on 11 carries, did get a touchdown. Had 11-yard catch on 2 targets. James White got a lot more work because, you know, unfortunately Rex Burkhead tore his ACL. 5 carries, 19 yards. You know, we don't really see him get a lot of carries, but what's not surprising is the 6 catches, 64 yards on 9 targets. Yes, that's not surprising.
That's old school James White.
James White, yeah. So, I mean, but he'd kind of taken a back seat to Burkhead because, you know, and God bless James White, you know, he lost his father earlier in the year, and I think he missed another game. But, you know, so he kind of took a back seat to Burkhead. But, you know, obviously he's a guy that, you know, moving on forward, expect some big things for them. How about Damiere Byrd? I mean, 6 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets. This is a guy I had to look back, but last week he got shut out by Baltimore, and he was actually the first. They haven't had a touchdown by a receiver since week 4.
Jeez.
Yes.
That is disgusting.
So and I had heard Damiere Byrd. I didn't know this, but Damiere Byrd played for Carolina. So they mentioned that he played for Carolina, and I thought, okay. I didn't do my homework before this, but I was like, okay, so him and Cam must have done something. You know what his stats were in 3 years at Carolina?
What's that?
12 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. So there wasn't a lot of production.
Right.
So just in this game, him and Cam hooked up for half their passes complete, 3 yards more than they had 3 yards, and 1 of 2 touchdowns. So, like I said, I picked them up in my league, and I definitely, and this is impressive because N'Keal Harry came back. He had 5 catches, 41 yards, 8 targets, which is it's not great, but it's not terrible. But so Harry came back. They brought up Dante Moncrief. How about that name, huh? He had a catch for 15 yards, 2 targets, although he got sent back down to practice squad. But I could see him getting sent back up. Everything I had heard is that, he was looking the best because they traded for Isaiah Ford from Miami, who was supposed to be their slot receiver, and he's only dressed out one of like 3 games. I think he's been with the team for 3 or 4 games. He's only dressed out. So that was interesting to me that they brought up Dante Moncrief, and they traded a 7th rounder for Isaiah Ford. They're not even
I want to say it's at least 2 to 3 games, but I think within the next couple of weeks you probably see a lot more Isaiah Ford. To me, he's kind of like a Jacoby Myers. Demir Bird, dude, is just with him, like, his route running looks really good, but the 1 or 2 routes that I saw him run was when his cornerback was playing off of him, like about 10 yards off.
Yeah.
So he was able to do one of those crossing routes, which I saw.
And this was a game for one of their wide receivers to go off because, and maybe you can dispute or other people can dispute, but whenever I think about Houston's defense, I never think about their secondary.
Right.
I've never thought about their secondary. I've always thought it was like average to below average. Even when they had Jonathan Joseph, I still thought it was average to best, say the best.
It's not like it was maybe a couple 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah, but I've never been impressed with their secondary, in my opinion. So this was a game for someone to go off now. I think we all thought Jacoby Myers would. And I don't know if I mentioned he had 3 catches for 38 yards, 3 targets. But I think that, like I said, I'm a little biased because I got Demir Bird in our league, and I was impressed. Like I said, they had N'Keal Harry come up. They got Moncrief, who's been in the league for a few years. I think he had and we're talking 5 or 6 years ago, but he had 2 years where he had 13 touchdowns combined, 2 years straight. I mean, so 6 touchdowns 1 year and 7 the next year.
The only problem with that, Demir Bird, he was the number 4 wide receiver in fantasy, but how often do we see that kind of output from somebody like Cam Newton throwing 40 pass attempts?
I agree. No, I agree. I just, like I said, I just because of like the fact that he was going to James White, like James White got 9 targets, and they brought up N'Keal Harry. I was impressed, but I get what you're coming to that. They are a running team by nature, especially with Cam Newton. I mean, it's no secret that Cam Newton and Tom Brady are 2 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, because also with this game too, Cam Newton's rushing attempts was only 3 for 6 yards, which is just really you pretty much see him almost on the cusp of double digits when it comes to rushing as well.
Right.
So.
Ryan Izzo, I mean, they've gotten none. They've gotten no production from their tight ends. I mean, absolutely none. And so for Ryan Izzo to get 2 catches, 59 yards on 3 targets, I mean, you would have thought he played like Gronk just with those 2 catches, 59 yards. I think Izzo on the year leads all their tight ends, and I think he's got like 12 catches.
Yep.
So they've gotten no production. But I guess he's a guy that if you really desperately need a tight end, I guess just to say you have a number 1 tight end, I guess you could say, hey, get Izzo. But I mean, other than that, that's the only reason I'd get him. And again, Bird the same way. If you needed a receiver, the one way of looking at it is right now he's listed as the number 2. Who knows down the road if because I mean they want N'Keal Harry to be the guy. Let's face it, they drafted him high for a reason. I don't see it though. I mean, he just hasn't impressed me. But you know how some teams are when they see like 5 catches, 41. When they see 5 catches or more for a guy like that, they're gonna think, oh shit, he's turning a tide. So
yeah,
but
and
I don't see it.
The Patriots are really not really that known for drafting a wide receiver. They always pretty much try and trade for one.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
Let's go to one that ended in a game-winning field goal. The Colts outdoing the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
I'll let you start this one up, man.
Okay.
Hit me up with some of the Green Bay Packers. Man.
So yeah, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he did Aaron Rodgers things, but he also had
I like hearing that. Aaron Rodgers. That's the way I want to live my life. Me doing Aaron Rodgers things every day.
There you go. He had uncharacteristic interception and an uncharacteristic fumble. I believe it was only his fourth interception of the season because he had 2 against Tampa and he had 1 last week. So he had 2 uncharacteristic turnovers, and it really came down to they turned the ball over 4 times. Luckily for Aaron, the 2 times he did turn it over, the Colts didn't score any points, but he went 27 for 38, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, ran it 3 times for 13. Aaron Jones, again, this is kind of like Miles Sanders. I knew this wasn't a great matchup for Aaron Jones, but he did manage to get a touchdown run, 41 yards on 10 carries, which, again, anytime you do 4 yards or more, that's respectful. So, and again, it wasn't a great matchup with the Colts defense. I think being 7th against the run, I think, or something like that. He had caught all 4 targets for 30 yards. Jamal Williams, just 5 carries, 12 yards. Only had 1 catch, but it went for 4 yards, which was a touchdown. So he vultured somebody's touchdown from Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams did Devontae Adams things. 7 catches, 106 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets. Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Dude, I want to say, like, every time Devontae Adams goes somewhere, like, I just kind of want to just be, like, singing that one song from, what is that? Bling, bling. Every time I come around your city, bling, bling. Putting up fantasy points, bling, bling. Like, every time. Devontae Adams just kills it everywhere he goes, dude. I fucking love it.
God.
My bad. I just want to turn around fitty bling bling. Like, I just want to put it to it.
I had not heard that song in a long time.
Dude, I haven't heard it since I was in fucking high school, yo. Icing out my Mitsubishi Galant. Oh, man.
Oh, my Lord. Awesome.
Sorry to get you off track.
It's all good. Oh, my God. That shows how old we are. Anyways.
Love it.
But Valdez-Scantling, he had 3 catches for 55 yards. I believe he caught on – I thought I wrote down the targets. 5 targets. I thought I wrote down the targets, but 5 targets. Had the costly fumble, though, that cost them the game at the end of the game, which pretty much put the Colts set up for a field goal. Blankenship kicked the game-winning field goal. So that was a big play, despite I think he was second on the team in receiving yards, but he had that costly fumble. Robert Tonyan was – especially, I think it was there was a game, primetime game where he had 3 touchdown catches, but really hadn't done anything since that. And 5 catches, 44 yards, a touchdown, caught all 5 passes. So I know Tonyan owners had to be happy about that. I can't say the guy's first name. I'll just say Quater St. Brown.
Equanimous. Yeah, you're good.
There you go. Caught his only target for 23 yards. Sternberger, a burger, was in the Indianapolis home. 3 catches, 23 yards, 3 targets. Alan Lazard, good for him. He came back. 2 catches, 18 yards, and 4 targets. And then Mercedes Lewis caught his only target for 8 yards. But,
yeah. And one thing I was kind of curious in this whole thing aspect too was what the amount of snap percentage it was going to be for Alan Lazard and for Marcus Valdez-Scantling, because I mean, since Lazard was put on IR for a little while, so Lazard had 59% of the snap percentage, whereas Marcus Valdez-Scantling was about 85. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's still hard to decipher. I guess you can still put MVS as the number 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if this somewhat flip-flops once Lazard gets back into the game. You know?
Right. And let's face it, you're in a – NFL is what have you done for me lately? And unfortunately, the last play that Valdez-Scantling had, he lost a fumble that cost him the game. So, I mean, you can't just cut the guy altogether just because of that one play, but it certainly makes it certainly gets you thinking as a head coach, I would imagine, like, okay,
right.
Can we trust this guy?
One thing I do – I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it definitely would probably get Matt LaFleur or whoever I can't think of who their offense coordinator is. Maybe it's Alex Van Pelt. Anyways, but it probably after that probably gets them thinking, all right, can we trust him over Alan Lazard? So that's all I was just going to say about that.
Well, I don't think it's more of them. It's more of Aaron Rodgers. This is what I was actually going to start getting ready to say. Like, I like to watch Green Bay when they're on offense. I like to see Aaron Rodgers and the plays he makes and the plays that go southward if something goes wrong and if things go right. And when Marcus Valdez-Scantling, I think it was about last week or two, where he had that one bomb for a touchdown. I mean, Aaron Rodgers came by and cheered him on. He said, like, literally he pointed in his face, like, afterwards, like, that's the way you do it. Like, that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Like, because he didn't really have that kind of confidence in MVS earlier in the season, maybe even last season as well. So that's why I think Alan Lazard came about last year, probably around this time, maybe a little bit later. But
you're right.
And that's how I think Alan Lazard pretty much got the Jets' number 2 job earlier in the season. So
I mean, he was balling out. He was balling out. He was balling out before he got hurt. I mean,
like you said, that fumble from Marcus Valdez-Scantling too can kind of hurt him too. Put him somewhat in the doghouse to where we might be able to see Alan Lazard, pick up the slack.
Right. You hope, I don't know nothing about MVS other than, he's a wide receiver for the Packers, but you hope to not, and I got no reason not to like the kid, but you hope to see him get the trust back, or at least still have the trust from Aaron Rodgers and from the coaching staff. Like I said, that one fumble shouldn't, put him on the practice. Well, I don't think they can put him in practice, but they shouldn't put him shouldn't put him as like the number 6 wide receiver. But
I don't think it's going to bury him deep, but it's going to bury him to like
at least number 3
playing time to Alan Lazard. Yeah.
Right, because I don't see Equamus St. Brown.
Absolutely not. I don't
taking more snaps than him. So
anyway. Aquaman won't make it to him for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's for the Colts, man. Phillip Rivers was the top 6 QB this week in fantasy. 24-36 for 288, 3 touchdowns. Did throw 1 interception, but the thing is, besides that, I'll put it to this right quick. Everybody in this game was kind of standard in the receiving game, except for Michael Pittman, who had 3 for 66 and a touchdown. He only had 3 targets, which is kind of scary. Usually I want my guy, somebody I want to start heavily to be targeted fairly well. I know one of his first catch, he did have a drag, or he crossed the middle of the field, caught it, and went for a touchdown, which was nice for Pittman. But the big thing here that I am noticing and wanted to see is the fact that Jonathan Taylor had 22 carries. That's right, 22 carries. We weren't used to seeing that within at least this part of the season. Probably haven't seen anything like that within the first 2 to 3 weeks of this season. 22 for 90 yards. He did not have any – no, he had 4 receptions for 24 yards too.
He runs hard. I haven't watched much Colts games, but he runs hard. I mean, I can't knock him for that. It's not like he's pussyfooting. Excuse me.
I do know Green Bay is somewhat easy to run against. So I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's got the ability to run hard, man, and we know his 40 time is pretty damn fast. So I mean, when he beats, when he's able to get to that, the second part of the
second level,
second level and whatnot, like he's able to gun it for sure. Jordan Wilkins only had 4 carries. Naheem Hines only 6 carries. So he definitely outtouched We double the amount of touches for those two guys.
It seems like it's a game. It seems like, and I saw some on Twitter with last week's game. It seems like it's a game plan base. They don't. Who knows? Next week you could see Jonathan Taylor only get maybe 10 or 11. I think it's just all on game plan on who the guys. Kind of like almost kind of like the Patriots. Although I think the Patriots are starting to realize that Damian Harris is their guy. I think the Colts are starting to become that. Well, it's whoever fits our game plan for that week.
Yeah, because Jordan Wilkins, when he gets his touches, it's not going to really go. He's pretty much going to get to maybe that second level, and that's about all you're going to get.
Yeah.
Whereas Jonathan Taylor, he's able to break free and pretty much give you that substantial amount of yardage afterwards. Right. But Naheem Hines is definitely explosive as well. Pretty much one of those who's like the better pass catcher for sure. And
absolutely.
It's kind of hard to see what game script these guys are going to follow throughout the season. But it's kind of good. It's uplifting to see Jonathan Taylor get 22 carries for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty damn good. But cool. So let's journey on down to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
How
Why don't you give it? We can run through this one pretty quick. Just give me a quick synopsis of that Steelers Jags game.
Okay, yeah. Big Ben, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns. Connor, 89 yards on 13 carries, which was good to see because they've not run the ball well. Although Benny Snell took a touchdown away from him, so if you had Benny Snell, you had to be happy about him getting 15 yards and a touchdown. Deontay Johnson, holy cow, what a workload he had. 12 catches, 111 yards, 16 targets.
Damn.
Which
that's
I can't
Antonio
remember.
Brown back in the day.
Yeah, I mean he was making Jacksonville look bad, which I mean I know it's not that hard to do, but still, I mean, what a workload on that one. Chase Claypool, 4 catches, 59 yards and a touchdown. Disappointing 8 targets though, so only caught 4 out of 8. So that's a little disappointing to see, but certainly made his mark by having I think his 10th touchdown. I think it was this year. So that's got to be top 3, if not the top. Eric Ebron, 4 catches, 36 yards and a touchdown. He had 7 targets. So I mean, I don't think he gets that many targets, or he usually doesn't. So it's kind of disappointing to see him only get 4 when he does get that many. Juju made the most of his 5. I mean, caught 4 or 5 targets, but only 19 yards. And you're kind of, I don't know. You're kind of, I think you said it. You're kind of starting to see him go out on his way out. Of course, he can play that slot receiver role. I think between him and like Ray McLeod, Juju of the other receivers, he can play that slot receiver. I've seen him make some. I think he had a touchdown catch against the Giants out of the slot.
I was going to ask. I'm just going to ask you this because this is something that kind of crossed my mind within the past week or two. Me being a Juju fan in one dynasty league, so.
Me too. Yeah.
We both know that. So you do have a share of Juju.
I do. Yep.
Okay. So my thought is maybe study the linebacker core and how good they are and the team that Juju is facing. Because if they're pretty good, then I'll probably fade playing him because he plays a lot in the middle of the field.
Well, and the Jaguars do have Joe Schobert, who's not that bad of a linebacker. He was really good at Cleveland. Certainly, I could say the defense for Cleveland was slightly better than this one that he's with Jacksonville. But yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean they got Scobert, who he's probably the only defensive player I can think of on Jacksonville.
He's the one who crossed my mind too. But I mean, it's just the fact I kind of want to watch this game just to see like Juju's routes too, and like, I did hear some things that he might not be the same this year. Like he's still probably like not 100%.
And he did injure his toe. He didn't practice yesterday. He was limited today, which a lot of times. So lot of times he misses the first day of practice of a week, so that's very common.
Mm-hmm.
But then he was limited today, so usually weeks where he doesn't practice on Wednesday, he'll come back on Thursday and be a full participant. So he was limited today, that's a little bit concerning because, like I said, usually he gets a day off on a Wednesday and then comes back full.
Right.
Today he came back limited, so that's a little bit concerning. So I mean, there's a possible chance he doesn't play Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit concerning. But it frets out if he's a number 3 because he can play the slot, like I said. And then James Washington, just 1 catch, 12 yards on 3 targets. Guy that actually shocked me was Ray McLeod, who played for the Bills. He caught all 4 of his targets for 20 yards, and he's definitely a slot receiver, and he plays punt return, kick return. He's a guy that
I made this for special teams purposes. Sorry, I was fixing my phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Ray McLeod's a guy that I would maybe take a maybe small look at, especially if it seems like James Washington, he's starting to fade out too because of the emergence of Claypool and Deontay Johnson. So it's interesting to see what they do with someone like James Washington. But yeah, that's all
absolutely.
I got for Jack. But yeah, that's Pittsburgh. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But, I mean, going on that, like, dude, just Deontay Johnson looks great. I mean, it's going to be him or Claypool. Sometimes, I mean, you want to start either or. Starting to fade on somebody like Juju for the time being, especially with the fact that, like, he's, his injuries are kind of taking a toll on him, too. And just the fact that, like, there's way too many targets to be going around. And these 2 other, I would say, young wide receivers are pretty much – the same age, maybe even older than Juju, which is very odd, are getting more of the targets and ability. So let's say I'm going to go to Jacksonville and Jake Luton, 16 to 37, 151 yards, 4 interceptions. That is a wow right there. So I think Jacksonville's looking to get Gardner Minshew back in the game as soon as possible. James Robinson, it's the James Robinson show when it comes to rushing. 17 carries, 73 yards. He did have 2 receptions for 21 yards. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't really much here. So it's just DJ Chark, 4 receptions for 41 yards out of 8 targets. At least we know he's the primary target for the team. We did have a little bit from Tyler Eifert, who had 5 targets but only caught 2 for 32. And Keelan Cole still somewhat of a factor, 2 receptions for 26 yards. So it's just like the team is like kind of taking a downward spiral, and they're likely to get the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah,
going into 2021.
We'll talk about the Jets, but I even though Jets haven't won, I'll go on record and say, like, within the last 2 weeks, I know the Jets have played the Patriots. I know they played the Chargers, and then the Jaguars played Pittsburgh. But Jets are somewhat trying to not get the first pick, whereas Jacksonville, I think they're just fucking – they're terrible. They just they're terrible, dude. Like, I at first I thought the Jets were the worst team in the AFC, and maybe they still are. They probably are, but – Jacksonville's not that is starting to creep up with them to make the worst team in the NFL. So both teams are pathetic, but Jacksonville's starting to get there.
Well, let's head to a little bit of a brighter side in the NFC South. Let's go with the Falcons just losing to New Orleans Saints. And I'll start it off real quick. I mean, we weren't sure once Drew Brees went down in Week 10 last week who was going to be his starter, and we thought it would all have been Jameis Winston. But it turns out that Taysom Hill took a majority of the first team reps during practice last week. So he ended up starting for sure. Threw 18 completions out of 23 attempts for 233 yards. No touchdowns thrown, no interceptions, which was good. He also had 10 carries for 51 yards and 2 touchdowns. He definitely had more rushing yardage than Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara. What was it? Latavius had 12 for 49, Kamara 13 for 45. Kamara did get a touchdown on that too. But the good thing is Michael Thomas being back. Caught 9 of 12 targets, 104 yards. Emmanuel Sanders, 4 receptions, 66 yards. I thought he had a TD on one, but I think the play was called back too. So on a flag, I think it was offensive holding and whatnot. But still got Latavius, which is very odd. We had more targets and receptions than Alvin Kamara, 2 for 26.
Wow.
They're kind of using Latavius a lot more this season. I don't know if it's to get the bulk of the carries off of Kamara so they can head into the playoffs. Kind of transition into something like that. I don't think there's any kind of small injuries going on with Kamara to where he's being limited during these games. But I think they're using Latavius a little bit more. Being somewhat smart. Maybe when they're ahead against a team like Atlanta, where they know they could take the lead, halfway through the game, and then just pound the rock a little bit more.
Yep, I agree.
Slow the game down.
Yeah, Kamara was definitely getting I wouldn't say overworked, but he was definitely getting a workload because of all the injuries to the wide receivers. So, I think it's smart. And Latavius Murray's always ran hard. He's not he's got some speed to him, but he's got a little bit of power too. He always runs hard. So
all right, what you got on Atlanta side?
Yeah, so I was disappointed in Matt Ryan. I thought this would be a game that they needed Matt Ryan to do something because Saints' run defense is really good. But man, this offensive line, Matt Ryan, they had what a time. Matt Ryan only 19 of 37 for 232, 2 INTs, was sacked 8 times. He's going to be seeing Cameron Jordan in his dreams probably for the next week because Cameron Jordan got to him about 3 times. The Trey Hendrickson guy, he got to him twice. Todd Gurley just 8 carries, 26 yards, caught 1 of 2 targets for 3 yards. Brian Hill had 4 carries, 18 yards, and I actually like Brian. I like Brian Hill. I think I saw him play. I've seen him play once, and I thought he ran the ball well against Carolina the game I saw him play. And he only ran it 4 times for 18 yards, but I like some Brian Hill. I think that obviously they're going to run Gurley because they paid him this 1 year, but Brian Hill could be good for a lot of teams. He could be Brian Hill could be a starting running back in this league. I really believe that.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Ito Smith, a 5-yard run. Brandon Powell, a 3-yard run. Calvin Ridley, 5 catches, 90 yards, but on 9 targets. So that's not. I think a lot of you're going to see next couple guys like Gage had a lot of targets, but not a lot of catches. But it had a lot to do with, I think, so much the offensive line and Matt Ryan. I'd have to watch the game again, but when you go 19 for 37, there's going to be a lot of missing targets. Russell Gage, 7 catches, 58 yards, again, 12 targets. So, Julio caught both of his targets for only 39 yards. Christian Blake, who I had to look up, I guess he's their 5th receiver. He had 2 catches, 28 yards, 4 targets. Olamide Zacchaeus caught his only pass 10 yards. And then their fullback had a 4-yard catch. And Aiden Hurst, what a dud. He put up a dud. 2 targets, goose egg.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed in that.
Totally had him in one league where I was like, what the hell is going on? You know?
Yeah.
Even when Julio went out for a little while too, I thought
They-
maybe. What was that?
Okay, I was saying, okay, I didn't know that. That explains the 2 targets on the game. But yeah, man, I was disappointed by Hayden Hurst. I was disappointed by Matt Ryan, considering that the Saints are better against the run they are against the pass, and that pass rush got to them 8 times. They were all over Matt Ryan.
Absolutely. Yep. Let's head on over to the Bengals and the Washington football team. I'll let you go with the Bengals real quick. Be right back.
I feel bad for Joe Burrow. He was having a heck of a season.
Sucks.
Yeah, and Ryan Finley is not the answer. He just isn't. Burrow, before he left, 22 for 34, 203, and a touchdown. Ran it twice for 12 yards. As we probably all know, he lost a fumble. He got smacked by his former Ohio State teammate. If those don't know, Joe Burrow went to Ohio State for 3 years, and Chase Young put a smack on him. He lost a fumble.
Was that the one he got injured on?
The fumble? No.
Yeah.
No. The fumble was at the 1 yard line. That was earlier in the game. No, he got hurt in the third quarter, which was really his offensive line. From what I could tell, if his offensive line was blocking Chase Young, and it looked like he pushed Chase Young into Burrow, is what I saw. Ryan Finley, 3 for 10, 30 yards, an interception. Probably the best play he had was a 19-yard run. But, I mean, this is what Ryan Finley did on his drives. They went 0 yards, 13 yards, -5 yards, 9 yards, and 0 yards. They went punt, turnover on downs, interception, and besides his last throw was an interception, but his 4 drives, he got sacked on every possession.
Good grief.
So, again, had to watch back, but their offensive line is terrible, and I just don't see Finley being the answer. Otherwise they wouldn't have drafted Joe Burrow, because they just drafted Ryan Finley. So, obviously they saw that Ryan Finley was not the answer. The running game is –
Dude, look how ridiculous that is, dude. It's insane. They try to give everything to everybody.
I mean, Washington's run defense is abysmal, dude. I mean, they let Gallman and Alfred Morris combine for like 136 yards. And Pirine, 5 carries, 19 yards. And Bernard, 9 carries, 18 yards. That's terrible. That is terrible against that run defense. Bernard did have 4 catches, 37 yards on 5 targets. Tyler Boyd had a good game. He had 9 catches, 85 yards on 11 targets. A.J. Green, 4 catches, 41 yards, and a touchdown, 9 targets. And what's funny about that is a guy that was one of the guys at the Carolina game called it. He said, A.J. Green's going to score. He's like, I said, why you say that? He's like, well, we let bum wide receivers. What did he say? He said we let bum wide receivers that are past their prime score against us. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I told him that he scored, he said, yep, I called it. Drew Sample, 2 catches, 29 yards, 4 targets. T. Higgins kind of came back down to earth. 3 catches, 26 yards, 10 targets.
Yeah. This is why I was really big on Tyler Boyd last week when we were all talking. I think he's a big guy to trade for, because I think when A.J. Green's out, T. Higgins is still a big factor. Absolutely. Right. But Tyler Boyd is getting a lot of receptions, dude.
Right. And I would imagine that probably Kendall Fuller was probably on T. Higgins, although I could see Kendall Fuller going in between T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, but Kendall Fuller's playing some really good football. It don't get much easier for the Bengals. With Ryan Finley, this is their schedule the rest of the year. They got Giants, Dolphins, Cowboys, Steelers, Texans, Ravens. And, I mean, they're going to lose to the Steelers. They're going to lose to the Ravens. They're going to lose to the Dolphins. I'll say they're going to lose to the Giants. I think Giants are playing pretty good. They might beat the Cowboys and they might beat the Texans, but I don't even know if you have Tyler Boyd. I don't even know if I would start him. I mean, that's how bad their offensive line is. Their run game is terrible, and Ryan Finley, like I said, they wouldn't have drafted Joe Burrow if they didn't think Ryan Finley could do the job. So,
right.
If you got anybody on Cincinnati, I'd tread carefully on who you start.
It's not a bad idea to go through, dude. On the Washington side of the ball, speaking of somebody who went through a horrific injury, Alex Smith, 17-25 for 166, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. What is good to see is the rushing ability. We had Antonio Gibson out-carried just about everybody. 16 carries for 94 yards and a touchdown. McKissick, 6 carries. Peyton Barber, 8 carries. McKissick had a pretty good average on each carry, though, 7.2 yards per carry, doing 43 total yards.
He fits that offense.
He does.
I really wasn't impressed with him at Detroit or Seattle, or it was more Seattle, but I told my buddy, the same guy, I said, McKissick just happens to fit that offense for some reason.
Yep. He did also – McKissick as well also had 4 targets, second most targeted player in the team. We know he's been targeted, 15, 16 times last game or something like that. So he had 4 targets this time, 3 for 26 yards. Terry McLaurin had 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 84 yards. Cam Sims, a guy – or was it Cam Sims or Steven Sims? Kind of difficult to remember the two, but I think it was Cam Sims we talked about more. Caught 2 for 2 of his targets for 20 yards, and then Cam Sims had 3 for 13 yards and a touchdown. So
they're looking for their number 2. I mean, they don't have a true number 2, and so I think they want because Dontrell Inman was the number 2 for a few games, and he's been inactive the last 2, and so Steven Sims is kind of more of a gadget receiver. Like they ran a lot of jet sweep with him. Isaiah Wright, I don't know too much about, but I would imagine he's probably number 4, number 5 on the list. But Cam Sims, they're definitely trying to make Cam Sims a number 2.
Yep, that's for sure. But yeah, Washington overall, they're pretty much there with the rest of the pack of the NFC East right now. So who we got next? We have the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh boy, Cowboys are going to Super Bowl.
Go ahead and give us the Cowboys synopsis there.
I came into work and I mocked every Cowboy fan saying, "Oh, I'm going to the Super Bowl," because that's how Cowboy fans are. They win a game, and you would have thought that they were going to Super Bowl.
It's fun to do that, Go to work.
Yeah, they weren't too happy about that, me doing that. But yeah, Andy Dalton definitely.
Whoa, 1 second. It's better you to start that off once you get to work instead of them.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah,
put them in their place.
Yeah, but I had to beat them to the punch. But no, actually, the people at work, they're actually not like that. But I know a lot of Cowboy fans that are. So
absolutely, 75%.
Exactly. Yeah, Andy Dalton, I thought he did some good things. I mean, compared to what he did against Washington and Arizona, he did not look that good against either one of those teams. I thought Andy Dalton played pretty well. Did have an interception, but 22 for 32, 203 and 3 touchdowns. Zeke, I didn't know this. I think I'm right when I say this, but I think Zeke had his first 100-yard game, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he also caught a touchdown. He caught a touchdown pass, 2 catches, 11 yards, and a touchdown. But, yeah, 103 on 21. So, I mean, Zeke got back to running like Zeke. I'll tell you a guy who another guy that is like Brian Hill, Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard's a good player. I think he's a really good player. And 5 carries, 60 yards, and a touchdown. And not that I try to listen to anything Skip Bayless says, but he said that the run the other day was the first time they had a 30-yard plus run this season. But Tony Pollard's another guy that he can be a starting running back in this league. I truly believe that. And he probably won't get a shot until he decides to not sign with the Cowboys again. But him and Brian Hill could be like D'Angelo Williams. D'Angelo Williams, for those that don't know, probably played till he was about his mid-30s. But he was never the guy. But he kept playing for all those years because he was never the guy. But he had a good career. But, yeah, I think Tony Pollard's a good player. He had a touchdown run, if I didn't mention that, 5 carries, 60 yards. Again, I think he's a really good player. Amari Cooper fans had to be happy, even though he didn't have 100 yards and he didn't have 10 catches, whatnot. But he had 6 catches, 81 yards on 7 targets. And, he's kind of a guy that doesn't show up on the road, especially when they play like Philadelphia. I think against y'all, I think he had like 1 catch for 5 yards. So, if you had Cooper, you had to be happy that he finally showed up during a road game. CeeDee Lamb only had 4 catches, 34 yards, and a touchdown, but he had a hell of a catch. That was a hell of a catch he had. Again, Skip Bayless thinking that was the catch of the year, which I don't know what the hell he's smoking. Shannon Sharp said another catch was the catch of the year, which I'm not going to mention it. Some dumb hail. Anyways, Michael Gallup is slowly becoming I wouldn't say a non-factor, but he's being outplayed by CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper. It's not even close, in my opinion.
I think he's droppable in most leagues for sure.
Yeah. 2 catches, 29 yards on 5 targets. Dalton Schultz, 4 catches, 25 yards, but he did have a touchdown on 6 targets. And then, you had like Blake Bell, a 13-yard catch, Cedric Wilson, a 7-yard catch, and Noah Brown, a 6-yard catch. So, but yeah, that's all I got for that.
Okay. Well, on the Vikings side of the ball, although they lost this game, we did see Kirk Cousins complete 22 of his 30 passes for 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. Man, that put him as the number 3 overall quarterback in this week's fantasy outlook. Dalvin Cook, dude, 27 carries. 27 carries for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. That's right. And he had 5 receptions for 45 yards, making him the number 1 overall running back in fantasy this past week for week 11.
What a shocker.
But not to mention, too, let's throw another number 1 wide receiver for this fantasy output is Adam Thielen, 8 for 123 and 2 touchdowns. Lit it up, dude. But one thing I want to see, too, although we talked about Kirk Cousins having a pretty good top 3 week, Dalvin Cook, number 1 overall rushing. Adam Thielen, number 1 overall receiving. Justin Jefferson, 3 out of 5 targets for 100. Oh, I'm sorry. Caught 3 of his 5 targets for 86 yards and 1 touchdown. Mm-hmm. So he only had 5 targets.
Right.
Adam Thielen had 11 targets. What if Justin Jefferson had 11 targets?
Well, here's the thing, though. He might get those because I don't know if you saw Adam Thielen's got COVID.
See, I'm seeing, like, the fact that, like, what if he at least has 8 receptions, Justin Jefferson, in a game? You're looking at somebody who can get 150 yards in one game.
Yeah.
At the least.
Justin Jefferson was one of my favorite wide receivers. I thought thought he could play. I think he could play slot. I think he could play on the outside. He was one of my favorite wide receivers coming out of this draft. And and again, I mentioned this before, and again, I'm going to use a Buffalo analogy, but I thought the Bills won with Diggs, and then the Vikings have probably won on that deal by taking a chance and drafting a rookie wide receiver. And
That's right.
Justin Jefferson he's a stud, dude. I mean, I know the 5 targets aren't great, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that he's a stud.
Yeah, dude. The fact that, like, I mean, you have somebody like Kirk Cousins who's passing the ball too, who's not really capable of, like, moving outside the pocket very often.
No.
So, I think there's something for Justin Jefferson to keep growing as a wide receiver. Maybe within the next couple of years, he gets a quarterback who's sustainable to, prolong the play, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Extend the play. Just somebody who's capable of, like, catering to the way that he plays offense, maybe making him the primary target. Because, I mean, Thielen, I think he only has about 2 more years on his contract after this year. I think he's out through 2022, which is going to be interesting and fun to see Jefferson, within his 3rd year, maybe 4th year. That's when you see a lot pouring on, of him.
And Thielen by then will be 32 years old. And so,
it could be by next year where Jefferson is the primary guy.
Right.
Yeah,
look how many teams there's a lot of teams he would be the number 1 wide receiver. I would make an argument that maybe 2/3 of the league he might be the number 1, if not more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's absolute stud. It's probably more than that, but I guess I'm being modest. He's at least a number 1 on 2/3 of the NFL. Mm-hmm. So he's a hell of a player for a rookie.
Right. All right, let's go with the Chiefs and the Raiders. I'll pick it up on the Raiders real quick. Derek Carr, man, not a bad game, man. They were there, just like they've won the game last time against Kansas City.
Right.
They were right there. He completed 23 of his 31 attempts for 275, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Mm-hmm.
We did see Josh Jacobs with 17 carries for 55 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Booker. Last week, he was pretty much half and half with the carries with Josh Jacobs, but this week he only did pretty much a third of the same amount of carries as Josh Jacobs with 5 carries for 16 yards. Mm-hmm. And pretty much the primary receivers here were Nelson Aguilar and Darren Waller. Aguilar 6 out of 9 targets for 88 yards and a touchdown. Waller caught all 7 of his targets for 88 yards and a touchdown. Like, dude, this is one guy I got pretty much on my waiver wire ads, and that's Nelson Aguilar, who pretty much he was the 9th overall wide receiver for this week. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily put him as a wide receiver 1 going forward, but I think that's somebody you really could see possibly get wide receiver 2 numbers, but I'm more looking at somebody who's going to be a wide receiver 3 or maybe even a flex play.
So, and they, I know they want Henry Ruggs to be the number 1. I know they want Bryan Edwards to be number 2, but as I'm looking at the stats, I mean, they didn't really contribute at all. So, they're, in my opinion, they're still looking for a number 1 wide receiver. They're looking for a number 2 wide receiver. Yeah. I mean, the only guarantee they got every week is Darren Waller. So, I'm with you. Nelson Aguilar putting up. I mean, that's very encouraging, and I feel like he's always had the potential to be a number 2, maybe at the most, definitely number 3. So that's very encouraging for him to put up the stats that he did against KC.
Right. For that team too, I think Aguilar, like, one of his best attributes is being able to capitalize when the team does, like, any kind of play action. Especially if you got a good running game with Josh Jacobs, I think Aguilar can really capitalize on something like that. He extends the field fairly well. I mean, of course, Ruggs is more of like a dynamic guy.
Yeah.
But Aguilar knows where to be, where he has to be. He's not the greatest catcher, as we all know back there in Philly. But I mean, when he is capable of getting open space and whatnot, he's capable of bringing down the ball. So
Yeah, absolutely.
he's definitely not a bad play, especially in like deeper leagues, maybe 12, 14 team leagues. I'd probably take a little bit of a flex play, but like as a wide receiver too, in like very deep leagues, like 16 team leagues, I'd be okay with that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. What you got with KC?
So Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he, not to quote the Aaron Rodgers thing, but Pat Mahomes did Pat Mahomes things. 34 for 45, 348, 2 touchdowns. Threw his second interception, and both of his interceptions have come against the Raiders. So,
Damn.
Raiders.
They got his number.
Yeah, and for so long I always thought that it was the other way around. Like KC had Derek Carr's number, and now Derek Carr's kind of flipped the script with these. Because he balled out the first game, and he had a good game. So I wouldn't say the Raiders have Mahomes' number, but certainly you can make an argument that if anybody does have close to his number, it's the Raiders. They've almost beaten the Chiefs twice, and like I said, the only 2 interceptions have come against the Raiders. So, but I mean, again, he still threw for 348 yards in the 34 for 45. I think that's like 75% or close to it. I think it is. Travis Kelce, he had a hell of a game. 8 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown, 10 targets. How he got so open is beyond me on that last touchdown. He actually threw a pass on that first drive. He got out of the Wildcat and threw a 4-yard completion to Byron Pringle. I think he threw about 20 touchdowns as a high school senior. So he's got an arm on him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire only had 14 carries, but he made the most of it. 69 yards, 2 touchdowns. Added an 8-yard catch on 2 targets. Le'Veon Bell, for those that been wanting Le'Veon Bell to do something, he finally got his first touchdown of the season. But just 25 yards on 7 carries. Did catch his only target for 11 yards. Tyreek Hill also had a hell of a game. 11 catches, 102 yards, 1 touchdown, 14 targets.
Jeez.
So and it felt like it was going to be that game. I was playing against Tyreek Hill in one league, and the first drive he had 5 catches and he had a touchdown. So it felt like it was going to be one of those nights where he was going to get target often, very often. So Demarcus Robinson had 6 catches, only 44 yards, but had 8 targets. Darrell Williams caught all 3 of his targets for 22. Pringle, 3 catches, 17 yards. And then Hardman caught his only pass. And then I guess their backup tight end caught their only pass. But, I think it was 9 different receivers Mahomes spread the ball to. So, like I said, he took the second pick, but he still threw for 348 yards. So
yeah, it's kind of funny too to see somebody like Mecole Hardman take a back seat, where we got Demarcus Robinson and even Byron Pringle.
Yep.
Basically taking a little bit more of the targets in that area. Yeah, dude, it's just
because Hardman's got world class speed. Make no mistake about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's no slowpoke. So yeah, I was surprised by that as well.
Well, we got 3 games left. Let's hightail it into the Dolphins against the Broncos. Okay. What do you got for me for the Dolphins?
Yeah, so they Tua he just held to 11 for 20, 83 yards. Did throw a touchdown pass. As you said, he got hurt. Like I said, I had heard both that he got hurt, but he also got benched. But nonetheless, Fitzpatrick came in, went 12 for 18, 117, threw a costly interception. I love Fitzpatrick. God bless him, but he's been known to try to throw it in a tight situation at the end of the game when they need to throw, when they need a big play. I love him to death, but like we said, maybe that was off target or off screen, or maybe that was a little bit ago. He's a gunslinger. He's going to put it in a tight window. Whether or not he should, that's another story.
Another thing on Tua, I mean, I don't know if he got benched because of the hit or if he got benched because they were falling behind, but it looked like kind of like a gruesome hit to where, like, I mean, he probably needed to be off the field for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like, it's one of those where you get clipped behind his left knee. So clipped behind and, like, his leg was caught and fell back. So I feel like that kind of could have caused some kind of strain. So that's my thought on that one. Go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, that's all good. No, and Brian Flores, their head coach, already said that he's going to start. This week against the Jets. They could put anybody against the Jets, and like
those should be all right.
Salvon Hamad, which people probably have only heard his name for 2 straight weeks.
Yep.
Modest, not only 43 yards on 12 carries, but did have 5 catches, 31 yards, 6 targets. He's definitely a guy that, if you haven't picked him up in the waiver wire, he's definitely a guy that I would go after because, until they get Myles Gaskin back, I'm not impressed with Matt Breida, who only had 2 carries, 4 yards. They cut Jordan Howard, and then I forget who else they have, DeAndre Washington. So Salvon Ahmed is definitely a guy that, if you haven't gotten him already, he's definitely a guy I would pick up in a heartbeat. Devontae Parker had 6 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. Mike Gesicki had just 4 catches, 43 yards on 5 targets, but coming from someone that's had him in 2 different leagues, it's nice to actually see him catch for more than just 1 pass for 15 yards. Mm-hmm. So, nonetheless, so that's a good game for him. Other than that, I mean, you got like Malcolm Perry, who they're trying to make a slot, 3 catches, 23 yards. Antonio Callaway, I think they're hoping he's the next guy, a 13-yard catch. Matt Collins, who from the Eagles, he had a yard catch, and then Patrick Lair, 8-yard catch. Gary, besides Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki, this offense doesn't impress me. It just doesn't. There's not. I mean, and I know Preston Williams is on the IR, but even with Preston Williams, I'm not impressed with this. They need to do, going into next year. They focused they focused on getting their quarterback of the future, and I think they got some good players on defense, but they need to do what the Bills did with Josh Allen. They need to get him. They need to get Tua or whoever it's going to be, playmakers, because there's not a lot of playmakers on this offense.
Yeah, because mainly that defense is what kind of kept them intact ever since Tua kind of took the reins.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there was times where they were able to be, on the opposite end of the field to where they barely were even on, playing from their side of the field. In ways, because that defense was pretty stout the past couple of weeks.
I love their defense. I think their defense is really –
They're sneaky good. They're sneaky good defense, man, for sure. Absolutely.
I think at one point they were number 1 in scoring. They probably are, because they only gave up 21 last week and they only gave up 20 this week. They're probably still number 1, if not definitely number 2. I really like their defense. But offensively, I'm not impressed.
Yeah. I like Tua. I mean, it's just really hard to gauge on left-handed quarterbacks, and just watching him throw sometimes, I'm like, is it a late throw? Because some of the comebacks or the hitch routes that I've seen over this past week were just like a little too late. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if he was just hesitant before he threw it, or was it the fact that he was throwing it at a certain point where, like, the ball just was not moving too slow to where the defense can catch up to it. But I think it's just I got to watch more of it. I don't want to say it's all Tua, But it's just one of those things where, like, you kind of look at it and you're like, something's slowing down on this offense. And the defense that they're going against is able to pick it up. It's really different. So,
and I've been saying it was Tua, but, there's just no playmakers. I guess it could be a mixture of Tua, but there's just no playmakers on this team. And going back to what you're saying on those comeback and hitch routes, and anybody that knows football, those are two routes that you can't be late on. If you're
you're throwing it before they make their break on those hitch routes or comebacks.
And if you're late, guess what? That's probably going for a pick.
That's something where the defense is pretty much, they're on their toes. They're going to be able to excel and be able to pick that off at any point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On Denver side of the ball, Drew Lock, 18 for 30 for 270. Did throw an interception. No touchdowns. Melvin Gordon had 15 carries for 84 yards, 2 touchdowns. Could have had 3 touchdowns, man. But he fumbled the ball right at the 1 yard line, dude. Oh God, I have one share of Melvin Gordon. I was like, shit, dude, he could have lit up. He could have had an amazing game.
Yeah.
Because what was that? 14. Yeah, so 14. He probably had about 12 points, Melvin Gordon, but he probably could have had about 20 with that 1 touchdown if he didn't drop it there. Anyway, Philip Lindsay out-touched him by 1 touch, 1 carry, 16 for 82. So those guys are pretty much half and half split this past week.
They look good. They look good running the football.
Yeah, Philip Lindsay, dude, I'm really interested to see if he can go somewhere else.
Yep.
I know Melvin Gordon has 1 more year on his contract, so I'm kind of curious how this all plays out on the offseason. I always wanted to see Philip Lindsay in Carolina. I thought that would be fun to see. Well, I'm sorry, not Carolina. The Cardinals, Arizona.
Oh.
That would be pretty fun.
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Okay, so leading receiving, Tim Patrick caught 5 of 8 targets for 119 yards.
That's my sleeper.
Dude, I love me some Tim Patrick, dude.
That's my sleeper. I don't even know what college you went to, but I fucking love him.
We'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll see if we can pull that up in a minute. Noah Fant caught 4 of 5 for 55 yards. And Jerry Jeudy, 8 targets, pretty much tied with Tim Patrick, caught 3 for 37. But a little bit of KJ Hamler, 4 for 6 for 35 yards. And, dude, I like Tim Patrick too. I'm a fan. Especially with Cortland Sutton being out all season, he's pretty much been carrying the workload as much as possible alongside with Jerry Jeudy. KJ Hamler's pretty much been up and coming too within the past few weeks as well. So I kind of think it's going to be Drew Lock's make or break the rest of the season. I think if he doesn't pick it up, they might find a veteran or somebody else who can replace him. I mean, let's think about it. You got Sam Darnold, who's pretty much probably going to be gone with
Jets. Yeah.
Jets. So he can be a possible opportunity there. You got somebody like, God knows, dude, if Sam Darnold goes somewhere else, if like Sam Fran or something like that, you got somebody like Garoppolo who can go to here.
Yeah.
It's just going to be – I feel like it's going to be a wild off season for quarterbacks in general. Because, I mean, they're 4-6, which is kind of deep for them to get a QB in the draft.
Right.
But I feel with the fact that Denver in 2019, they only spent a second-round pick for Drew Lock.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be too bad. That would change it.
I'm not impressed with Drew Lock, but I will say that because Cortland Sutton got hurt, I do think they ought to give him another year.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. Now, if he was doing this with Cortland Sutton playing, then I might pull the cord. But because he lost Cortland Sutton to a year, and then I think KJ Hamler out for a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to give him another year. And Denver's just very snake bitten. Like, what was it? Last year they didn't have Bradley Chubb, but they had Von Miller. This year they got Bradley Chubb, but they don't have Von Miller. They don't have Cortland Sutton. I forget who there was another big injury, but they're just snake bitten. It feels like they're one of those teams that they have everybody healthy. They could be a tough team to beat. So I'm waiting for them to have everybody on their team. I mean, at least, not when they play the Bills, but for the rest of, if they can have everybody healthy, they're a team that people need to watch out for.
Absolutely, dude. I totally agree, 100%. So, let's go with Jets and Chargers. You want to do a nice little small talk of the Jets real quick?
Yeah. Hey, I got to give Jets credit. I mean, they were down 24-6 at halftime, and they tried to make it a game. I mean, like I said, I think they've looked more impressive than the Jaguars have. My mom told me that they were tanking for Trevor, which has no ring to it. I think "suck for luck" sounded really good. At least they're trying. Tanking for Trevor, that I don't get it. Anyways, it has no ring to it. But anyways, Joe Flacco just 15 for 30, but did throw for 205, which if I'm doing my math correct, is about 13 yards of completion. So that's okay. But did throw for 2 touchdowns. Did throw an interception though. Frank Gore finally scored his first touchdown of the season. And had 61 yards on 15 carries. And it's looking like he's going to be the bell cow for maybe the rest of the year. He also had 2 catches, 10 yards, 2 targets, because Michael Pirine, who had 8 carries, 33 yards, and a touchdown, now on IR with a ankle sprain. So moving forward, you could see Frank Gore getting the carries that he's getting, unless they're going to put Ty Johnson, who I think Ty Johnson's a guy that you got to look into as far as your waiver wire, because, I mean, who else do they have besides Frank Gore? They got Ty Johnson and Josh Adams. So he's definitely a guy. Ty Johnson's a guy I would look up. Denzel Mims, 3 catches, 71 yards, but on 8 targets. Brashard Perriman, 2 catches, 54 yards, a touchdown on 4. Chris Herndon, 2 catches, 32 yards, and a touchdown on 3. Good to see Chris Herndon get in the end zone. They had a lot of high expectations for Chris Herndon, and he's kind of had a rough year. I think he was hurt, and then I think he was suspended, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, one thing, too, I know they used him a lot in a pass blocking game, which kind of sucked. It was so retarded.
Yeah.
Because he's athletic as fuck.
Yes,
so, if whoever the next regime is, they got to use him the right way. If not, somebody else will pick him off.
Yeah, I totally agree. Again, Ty Johnson didn't get a carry, but he had 4 catches, 17 yards on 6 targets. Again, I could see him getting a lot more work now that P. Ryan is going to be on the IR, and Jeff Smith caught his only target for 5 yards. And I probably spent more time on the Jets than I should have, but that's why. Yeah.
Well, dude. I mean, much like a jet, you just zoomed on out of that one.
Yep, exactly.
Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Herbert 49, I'm sorry, for 366, dude, and 3 touchdowns. Phenomenal. Just behind Deshaun Watson, number 2 overall QB this past week, which we all kind of thought would happen against the Jets.
Yeah, they were starting 3 rookies in the secondary, which I didn't know until after the game. So yeah, that's not.
Oh, the Jets did?
Yep. Because they got rid of their Pierre Desir, who was their veteran corner. So yeah, they were starting 3 rookies besides Marcus May. Obviously, they're starting 3 rookies. So yeah, it's not a shocker.
Shit, dude. The best recipient out of that for Herbert was Keenan Allen. Caught 16 of 19 targets for 145 yards and 1 touchdown, dude. Jesus Christ, dude. Can you imagine any player in this league getting almost 20 targets and how much they can probably do with that.
Hey, guess who has to face them next?
Oh, is it a –
The Bills.
Is it,
Oh, my Lord. God damn. What a – I couldn't believe it. 16 catches.
Well, let's go with carries. 16 carries for Kalen Balazs for 44 yards. He did have 7 receptions from 9 targets for 27 yards. Dude, Kalen Balazs, he's not one of the best runners, but
No.
For some reason, if he's on a decent team, if he's not, with Adam Gase, much like any other skilled player in the league,
Yeah.
he puts up decent numbers.
He runs hard. He runs
yeah.
hard. He's a bull. I mean,
I do know he doesn't have good footwork. His vision isn't great.
No.
But when he has the ball in his hands, he's capable of making, pretty good physical plays. He's capable of – he's got great long speed, no vision, no footwork, but is able to make the best out of what he is. Kind of like you said, he's a stronger back. Will push to get any extra yardage that he can.
Absolutely.
Mike Williams caught 4 of his 7 targets for 72 yards and a touchdown as well. So he had a pretty good game. Hunter Henry, if we can go to him real quick, 4 receptions for 48 yards and a touchdown as well. So Joshua Kelly is somebody who we all kind of looked in, when Eckler was about. They drafted him, I think, in the 3rd round. And also Justin Jackson, when he was a part of this backfield, he was pretty much taking away carries from Joshua Kelly. But it was all the Kalen Balazs game, man. So I don't know if Joshua Kelly is pretty much going to be in the back seat of this whole backfield. Tremaine Pope had 3 carries for 4 yards as well. So it's very – I think they're probably just testing everything out against this New York Jets defense.
Yeah.
So it was just mainly Balazs taking the bulk of this whole carry as well.
Well, I've read that, and this is just my luck against my team, that Austin Eckler has a good chance of playing this week.
Yeah.
So, obviously he's not going to get, 25 to 30 carries, but he's going to get, 15 to 20, I would say. So, but I still think with a guy like Eckler, you have to have another running back involved. So I think Balazs will still be involved. Obviously, he's not going to get 6. I don't think he'll get 16 carries. Excuse me. But he'll still be involved once Eckler comes back. Yeah.
Long night, dude.
I know. That's all good.
All right, we're going to go on the last one. Speaking of the Rams and the Buccaneers, the Rams edged this one out 27-24. Holler at me. What you got for Jared Goff and the Rams?
Yeah, so he threw 51 times, which was probably a good thing because I was not impressed with any of the running backs. Well, I looked and I saw Malcolm Brown actually had 3 carries, 20 yards, which is hard to believe. And
the whole rushing game was disgusting.
Yeah, which I sort of looked at Tampa's running backs. I'll let you say that, but they weren't much better. But so for good reason, Jared Goff threw 51 times, 39 completions for 376, 3 touchdowns, but did throw 2 interceptions. I'll just get through the running backs real quick. Like I said, Brown, 3 carries, 20 yards, 8-yard catch. Akers, 5 carries, 15 yards. Did have a 4-yard touchdown catch, so that was about the biggest thing he did. Darrell Henderson had 8 carries, 5 yards.
Nice.
2 catches, 4 yards. Big days, the ones we got to talk about the Rams. How about Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp? Robert Woods, 12 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown, 15 targets. So that's pretty darn good, 80% catch radius. Cooper Kupp, 11 catches, 145 yards, 13 targets. That's about 84%. which, you'd like to see. We talked about Cup last week, and I thought he would have had a bigger day. I thought him and Woods would have had a bigger day last week against Seattle, but it was Josh Reynolds who stole the show last week. So it was good to see Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp bounce back, especially against a Bucs defense who their secondary has played a lot better than what people thought they would have. I think Antoine Winfield is going to be good, and then that Carlton Davis has been playing good. So it was good to see Woods and Kupp light up.
Yeah, it kind of seems like, sometimes you're going to see like that Bucs defense has been playing well all season.
Yeah.
Like, there's some way, like somehow, like they just can't get it together because, the Rams were able to pick it apart. It's not like they were doing anything like absolutely like, the gadget plays or whatnot.
No, but Cooper Kupp, if you saw some of his routes, he had one guy, he cut to the inside, he faked to the inside, and the guy fell down. And then he went outside.
Yeah.
And that was just
I know which
one
you're talking about. Yeah.
You know which one, yeah.
Yeah.
And
that one guy fell to the inside, and Kupp made him look ridiculous.
And he didn't even have the ball. That was just on a route.
Yeah, that was one where his separation was probably 7 yards on that play.
Yep.
So ridiculous. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was one of the best games I've seen him play this year. I was highly impressive. And of course, Robert Woods, we had to just get rid of him for some reason, but whatever. The Bills, but imagine that. Tight ends, Higbee and Everett each had 4 catches. Higbee caught all 4 for 19. Everett 4 catches, 27 yards, 5 targets. I think we've come to the realization that's probably how it's going to be. I don't think – we all thought that Higbee was number 1. He hasn't really done enough for me to say that he's the number 1. And I think that's just how it's going to be. Josh Reynolds, after having the game he had last week, caught only 3 of 6 targets for 32 yards. And Van Jefferson made the most of his only opportunity. He had a nice touchdown where I think he faked the route going outside. He cut inside for a slant and made a great catch, 7-yard touchdown. So, like I said, he made the most of his 1 target. So, their running game was abysmal, and like I said, Tampa's was too. But I'll let you explain that one. So.
Well, let's give it out to Tom Brady and the fact that he does not like to shake hands with anybody who is an above-average quarterback. So he threw.
I heard about that. Like I heard that people were giving him shit for not shaking his hands. I didn't even think about it. I saw him walk off, but I didn't even think about the fact that for some reason
he didn't shake Nick Foles' hand that one game where the Bears beat Tampa Bay, and he didn't do it.
Yeah.
So Tom Brady had 26 of 48 for 216, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, dude. The Rams got away with 2 great interceptions with the fact that Tom Brady was just off in some way.
Yeah.
So Ronald Jones, just 10 carries, 24 yards. Fournette, 7 carries, 17 yards and a touchdown. Antonio Brown had the most targets for this team, 8 for 57 and 13 out of the 13 targets. Godwin caught 7 of 53 for 1 touchdown, and Mike Evans 5 for 49 and 1 touchdown as well. Gronk, not too much, caught 2 of the 6 targets for 25 yards. So, and Fournette and Ronald Jones definitely did not make the most of it for this passing game, but Brady was off his course in some ways, man.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, and the Los Angeles Rams, their defensive front actually put it to him, man, which was really it was interesting to see. Brady was on his back quite a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think was it Brockers got to him, and I can't say the dude's name, Ekubam or Ekubam, Samson Ekubam got to him. I think Aaron Donald hit him a couple times, but I don't think he sacked him if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Brady, yeah, man, and the interceptions he threw were they were awful. I mean, they weren't even close, especially the last one. They weren't even close.
It didn't seem like his footwork was like the way he wanted it to be, too. Like it was
rushed. You're right.
On his back.
You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he didn't look like the Tom Brady that we come to know.
Yep. But yeah, so that's that. So I mean, the Rams did edge out that game 27-24 on Monday Night Football. So let's just dive in some players that we think is going to be pretty good for waiver wire. Okay. So my number one is pretty much going to be Gus Edwards. I know Thursday they're going to be playing Pitt. Pitt is one of the best defenses, especially defensive front in the league. We do have J.K. Dobbins, who's going to be out with an illness. Mark Ingram out with an illness with this whole COVID thing going on. Justice Hill will be backing him up, which is good. I mean, we'll see a little bit of Justice Hill and whether he's going to be a primary factor in this game. But I think Gus Edwards, we've seen what he could do when getting a decent share of the touches, and I think that's my number one overall guy.
Yeah, that's a good
that I would pick up.
Yeah, that's a good. I think that's a good pick because, it's kind of like Tennessee, Baltimore. You have to go blow for blow with Pittsburgh, and I think you have to, even though their strength is like T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree, I think you have to hit Pittsburgh in the mouth. I mean, you can't be soft when it comes to Pittsburgh. So I think that. I think they're going to have to beat them up, and they're going to have to open up the play action and the rollouts that Lamar likes to do. I think they need to commit to the run game a lot more than they have within the last couple of weeks, especially last week against New England. I thought they would have ran the ball a lot more last week against New England, especially in the rain. But I mean, Lamar actually threw the ball real well last week, and then. So yeah, I think they need to run a little bit of justice. I like Justice Hill. I think he's just on a team where he's behind three other alpha males. So that's
the thing too. Like if I could see if he can be put on another team, I can kind of see that for sure.
I can see it. Yeah. I'm not saying, and I don't know if maybe a starter yet, but I can definitely see him being a backup.
A good scat back, somebody who can play the third downs for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think Gus Edwards is a good pickup.
You have anybody else on waivers you like?
Like I said, I know we were trying to do like the 50% guys. Like I said, I'm interested in Damiere Byrd. Like I said, I'm interested to see where he goes. Again, like I said, he got 7 targets when N'Keal Harry came back and James White got the targets that he's used to. So I'm intrigued to see what Damiere Byrd does. Like you said, I know they run the ball a lot more than they throw it, but I am interested to see where Byrd goes from here on out. What was I gonna say? So yeah, I mean he's intriguing. I would say I don't know if he's like up there among the top 10, but he's definitely intriguing on top of my head just to see where he goes from here. Where do him and Cam, who I guess they've been teammates for 4 years now, do they finally get a constant connection? So he's definitely
right.
A guy.
You want some consistency out of somebody you see out of that. Like I mean, he did put top 4 for wide receivers this past week, but like, is that something we're going to see significantly? Even though he might possibly, at the best, he might get a wide receiver 3, but I think he's still a possible plug and play to where, you're going to see more Cam, trust Damiere Byrd. quite a bit than what we've seen before. So I'm okay with that one. What do you think of Nelson Aguilar? He's going to be playing Atlanta and the New York Jets his next couple of games against Kansas City. Caught 6 of his 9 for 88 yards. These past 5 games out of 10, he's had double-digit points. So I mean, he's a decent play, I think.
I like it because Jets and Falcons, they're both terrible against the pass. Especially now that, like I said, I've read the Jets were playing 3 rookies. And no, I like that. I like that a lot. Like I said, Raiders are still looking for they're still looking for a number 1 in my opinion, and they're still looking for a number 2. So like I said, do I think Nelson Aguilar is ever going to be a number 1? Probably not.
Right.
But like I said before, he's had the potential to be a number 2, let alone a number 3. And I think they're just they need someone else other than Darren Waller to catch the football on a consistent basis. And if they can find that guy, I mean, they're 6-4. I mean, they're only a game out of the playoff hunt. And had they not given up a touchdown at the end of the game, they'd be 7-3, a game behind the Chiefs, and had the tiebreaker against the Chiefs. So, I mean, am I impressed with them on defense? Not really, but they're playing. But I think I like Nelson. I like that pick. Like I said, they're playing 2 very terrible pass defenses, and like I said, they're looking for that number 1, number 2. I think Nelson Aguilar is a good pick because I've only been impressed with Henry Ruggs maybe like 1 game, and Brian Edwards definitely has not stood out at all in my opinion. So.
Do you like Nelson Aguilar or Michael Pittman right now? Pittman, I'll give you the snaps like past 2 games.
Man.
Tennessee caught 7 receptions, 101 yards.
Yep.
Then Green Bay caught all 3 of his targets for 66 and a touchdown, which now he's got Tennessee, Houston, the Raiders after that. But, I mean, you got Aguilar going against Atlanta and New York Jets. 2 pretty soft defenses.
God, that's a good one.
Yeah. I might take Aguilar. I'm going to be upfront with you. I'll probably take Aguilar because, I mean, I think the next 2 games he's got, especially if I'm trying to make the playoffs, I think I'm okay with going against Atlanta and New York Jets. Whereas
absolutely.
Tennessee and Houston, they are pretty much defenses you can pretty much take advantage of. But Michael Pittman's basically his target share has not been amazing. So Phillip Rivers is never usually a top 10 QB. Whereas, I mean, Derek Carr is pretty much – he's shocked us all this year. Derek Carr can play pretty well.
Yeah, he has. I could see both sides, but certainly, like you said, the 3 targets this past game is not something you want to see every week. I can buy into Nelson Aguilar. I can buy into that. He's got 2 mouth-watering matchups. I don't know who he plays after the Jets and the Falcons, but he has a chance to light them up. I agree. But I do like what I've seen out of Michael Pittman, though. I do want to say that within the last, besides this one, 3 targets, he did make the most of the 3 targets. He has gotten better over the last 3 games. So I do like what I've seen out of Michael Pittman these last 3 games than I had seen the previous 7. But Nelson Aguilar is a little more proven, obviously, than Pittman.
Do you have anybody else for waivers that you like?
Like we talked about, Jacob Hollister, we talked about. I mean, the opportunity is there to get some targets with Greg Olsen being out.
I think it's a great opportunity for people who are tight end needy.
Yeah, I agree. And So I think he's got potential to be that guy that can get 40 to 50 yards, which right now for tight ends, if you can get 40 yards, you're doing something because
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember last week, and I don't know what it is now, but going into last week's games, Kelsey was averaging 85 yards or 85 yards a game rather, and the next guy was Darren Waller at 48. So if you're getting 40 to 50 yards a game from your tight end, like you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think he can be that guy that can get you 30 to 40 yards, can get you about 3-4 catches a game. I really do. So I think Jacob Hollister has that opportunity to be their guy. Because Greg Olsen does not have that much time left, if any at all.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
In the back end of last season, he had 2 games over 2 double-digit games, and then basically it was somewhat substantial in the past 5 games, 12 through 16. He was a decent play, but there was 2 games where he really lit it up in week 9 and week 10. He's getting targeted a lot. That was pretty much when DK Metcalf was a rookie, and yet Tyler Lockett there. Will Dissly, of course, was out for the season, but now we have, what's his name? Greg Olsen pretty much out for probably a couple of weeks at least. So I kind of like that for Hollister. Absolutely.
Yeah. As I mentioned before, I think Richard Rodgers is another guy. I mean, again, if it was up to me, if I was making a play calling, I would go more to 2 tight end sets for them. Again, this is another one where they need to be a run first team, and they need to set up the passing game. It's I hate to say it, Gary, but it's plain as obvious that Carson Wentz doesn't need to be throwing it 40 times, or hell, no, even throw it 35 times. I mean, it's plain as daylight for me. Again, I think Jalen Reagor, again, he's doing a lot better than some rookies. There are other rookies that are doing a lot better than him, but I think, he's slowly progressing. But I think they need to run a lot more 2 tight end sets, and they've been, like I said, Rodgers has played well. Last week he played well. This week,
they're pretty much they're more successful when they can play a really good, solid 2 tight end set.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So Rodgers is another guy that if you're desperate on tight ends and you're in a deeper league, he's definitely a guy that I would look into. Another guy that, again, he's probably been taken in a lot of the deeper leagues, but that Salvon Hamed is another guy because, again, Myles Gaskin was running the ball halfway decent, but they cut Jordan Howard. Matt Breida doesn't feel like he fits into this offense. I think they traded for DeAndre Washington, who I don't think we've seen yet that I'm aware of.
Nope, obsolete.
It's very clear that they're not going to give Patrick Laird a bunch of carries. They're going to maybe roll him out as far as a route.
Small flat routes and shit like that, yeah.
Right, exactly. So, it's very clear to me that they're not sold on Patrick Laird. I'm not sold on Matt Breida, if that means anything. And like I said, DeAndre Washington we haven't seen. So Salvon Hamed's another guy that you haven't picked him up yet, which, like I said, in the deeper leagues he's going to be picked up, but maybe the 10 teams or the 8 teams, he probably hasn't been picked up. But he's somebody that I would consider because he ran the ball well last week, and this week he was under 4 yards, but he did get involved in the passing game with 5 catches. So that was encouraging to see, considering that the passing game just wasn't that good this week. So
yeah, that works for me.
Yeah.
So somebody that I was looking at who was only 41% rostered in Yahoo leagues is James White with Rex Burkhead pretty much out for the season.
Oh, 41. Wow, 41%. I guess I base it off sleeper. Yeah, no, that's a great one.
Yeah. I think that's good too. I mean, that's somebody. It's going to be a really good dump off play for Cam Newton when he's in trouble.
Yep.
So I mean, we did talk about earlier. I think he had 6 receptions. Was it 6 receptions for James White?
Yeah, 6 for 64, I think, and he got 9 targets. Yeah.
Yeah, he made a bigger impact definitely in the passing game than the rushing game. So I mean, that's something big. We got Damian Harris being the running workhorse for that team, along with Cam Newton. You're going to see a lot of Cam rushing as well. But with the team being down and they're 4-6 right now, and if they're going to be falling back on the wayside in some of these games, I think James White is going to capitalize in some of that too. So I think that might be a decent play as well. So
absolutely. And then another guy who I'm almost certain he's been picked up, but KC is another team that has, they have Tyreek, they have Kelsey, they have Hilaire. I think is Sammy Watkins banged up from what I understand. Is he hurt?
Yeah, he couldn't play this past week. So I mean,
okay. So I mean, if he stays hurt,
week to week.
Okay, because as I say, if he's week to week, someone like DeMarcus Robinson might not be a bad play. I mean, do I think he's ever going to get 100 yards and 3 touchdowns like he had that one game last year? No, but he had 8 targets this week. So it's plain as daylight. At least this week, he was the second outside receiver. I like DeMarcus Robinson personally. I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how. I was just gonna say I'm not sure how Hicks feels about him, but personally, I like him. I think he was a free agent going into this offseason, and he was a guy that I said, hey, I wouldn't mind having him. Like he's shown flashes of being decent. So
yeah, he's had some drops this season already, especially early in the season. But I do think he's okay, like as a small play if you really need somebody to look into. Because anybody in that high-powered offense, especially if Mahomes is throwing anywhere between 300 and 400 yards a game, you want any kind of part of that team that you want for sure. DeMarcus Robinson isn't a bad play at all. It's kind of sucks for those who are Mecole Hardman owners. Like he's just not getting the amount of targets you want. He had 1 target this past week.
1 target. I mean, Brian Pringle had 4. So.
One thing I saw too was that Mecole Hardman is not much of a run blocking wide receiver, which is why they might not put him on the team too much, especially if they're in the lead. And how often are Kansas City in the lead?
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
And you know this, that Andy Reid for the longest time wanted to run the football effectively. And if you don't run block as a wide receiver, then he doesn't want you. I mean,
why put you on if you're not going to be able to, progress in some ways or make sure that,
I mean, for all the bad things people say about like Terrell Owens, in my opinion, run blocked. Now, maybe you could speak on that maybe more than I can, but it always seemed like Terrell Owens took a what's the word I want to use? Took not pleasure, but took pride in blocking.
Yeah.
In my opinion. So, and a lot of great wide receivers don't want to. And that was what Robert Woods was. Robert Woods, when he was in Buffalo, he was mostly a run blocker. He was a great run blocker. And now, obviously, the Rams have utilized him in ways that Buffalo never did. But Robert Woods was another guy that I thought took a lot of pride in run blocking, which made him at least attractable to the Rams to at least take a chance on him.
Yeah.
But
well, you got to at least say for the fact that Buffalo, I think they kind of it kind of came upright, at least for this season, with Beasley, John Brown, and Stephon Diggs for sure. But Unless you got somebody else, man, I think this is it.
Yeah. Maybe Cole Beasley. I don't know if
Cole Beasley is a nice sneaky play.
Yeah, I don't know what percentage he is, but I guess if I got to throw a Bills player in there, I guess I got to say Cole Beasley.
Might as well, man.
Yeah,
might as well, dude. Especially with the fact they were on a bye, right? So.
Yep, exactly. Other than that, I can't think of anybody.
John Brown is probably out there too. I mean, is he still got an ankle injury?
It's more of his. I'll just say knee, but you're right. I think it's his ankle. Like today he didn't practice, but he's been getting veteran days off on Wednesdays. He's another one like I mentioned, Juju, where he gets a day off on Wednesday. So if he's limited tomorrow or doesn't practice, then that's not a good sign. But if he didn't practice today, and I actually haven't looked up all the injury reports on the Bills, which I usually do by now. But as I told you, I took a nap for like 2 hours. But
dude, naps are fucking amazing, man. Once you hit 30, naps are the best thing in the world.
I know. I started taking more since. It's weird, but but yeah. So him not practicing today is not alarming. Like I said, Juju being a limit. Someone like Juju being a limited practice is somewhat alarming because, like I said, he usually gets those days off on Wednesdays, which they're playing on Thursday. So today for Pittsburgh would be their Wednesday. Or no, I'm sorry. Yesterday would have been their Wednesday. I'm sorry.
Right.
So, like I said, he usually gets Wednesdays off, and then he usually practices full on Thursday/Tuesday. So that's a little bit alarming for those that have Juju. Keep an eye on that. He may not play. So that's all I got, man.
Cool, man. Dude, it was a fun time, man.
Yes,
we did some work tonight for sure. Thank y'all from this is me, Gars_Poetica. We got Tyson Cullen once again had put in some fucking good ass fucking statistics today, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate
you, man. That was awesome.
Means a lot.
Definitely good shit. Be sure to follow us at theflug.com and be sure to follow us at theflug_FF on Twitter. And once again, man, thank you all for listening to our recap on week 11 and a little bit of waiver additions here as well. And we'll come at you with next week for after week 12. And make sure everybody has a good Thanksgiving. Be safe, have fun, and drink up, eat some turkey, get them sides in, get some Bills action in there. So
watch it 1:00 first Chargers. Should be so exciting.
It's a barn burner, baby boy. That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
Cool.
All right, guys.
We'll catch y'all next time. All right.
Be easy, guys.
All right, cool.